Drinking black tea calmly at Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 351: A Leisurely Life During the Holidays. Led by Lupin, Harry and his party came to the grave of the Potters. The most excited person in the group was Petunia. When she saw her sister's tombstone, Harry realized that someone could cry more than Moaning Myrtle. Petunia was standing in front of her sister's grave with the support of her husband. Dudley took off the backpack he had been carrying on his back, and took out a wreath made of white flowers from the backpack. Harry figured that if he read correctly, the white lilies that made up the wreath were the ones Aunt Petunia planted in a small field of flowers in the garden that no one else touched. Maybe it's been a long time since these lilies were picked, or maybe Dudley hugged his backpack a little tight when he was in the car. Most of the lilies on the whole wreath looked wilted, which made Dudley's expression follow not too good. Ginny took out her wand and walked in front of Dudley. Dudley's body trembled, and he wanted to shrink back a little, but reason made him stand there motionless, and at the same time pass the wreath forward. Then Dudley looked at his cousin's girlfriend and gave him a friendly smile. After saying a charm, he tapped the wreath with his wand, and then the whole wreath became as if it had just been picked from the ground. Juicy and juicy. The Dursleys didn't notice this scene. After taking the wreath from her son, Petunia placed it in front of Lily's tombstone with trembling hands. Harry stood by, looking at Aunt Petunia. At this moment, he suddenly thought of a sentence Zhang Su said when he and Zhang Su were talking about the Dursleys many years ago. On that day, it wasn't just you lost parents, and one sister lost her sister forever. Next, Harry placed a slightly larger wreath in the middle of his parents' tombstone. Harry didn't tell others why he wanted to pay homage to his parents on his birthday. He just mentioned to everyone that he wanted to come to Godric's Hollow while having breakfast a few days ago. At that time, the Wheel-Eyes and Hermione didn't understand what Harry meant. Only Black, who came to have breakfast every day, agreed to Harry's plan after a moment of silence. When Harry made this decision, his inner thought was that he wanted to see his parents and his former home before he died. The incident where Voldemort led the Death Eaters to attack the Hogwarts train gave Harry a lot of excitement, especially when he saw Zhang Su, whose life and death were unknown, being carried away on a stretcher by the rushing people. This made him truly feel that this is a tragic war, a war in which he may be buried underground like his parents at any time. So he planned to accomplish something while he was still alive, so that he could die without regrets as much as possible when he was about to die. For a period of time, Harry, who had fallen into a pessimistic mood, became gloomy, and only forced to smile in front of other people. Harry's changes fell into the eyes of caring people, but because there was no way to help Harry, he could only worry on the sidelines. When Harry and his party completed their trip to Godric's Hollow, Zhang Su, who was thousands of miles away, was sitting at a desk, writing hard on a piece of letter paper. When Zhang Su finished writing the last word, Fu Rong in pajamas put a steaming wooden cup by the desk. After Furin put down the cup, she walked behind Zhang Su and rubbed his temples, and said to him, "Didn't you say you should go to bed early? Why did you stay up so late?" Zhang Su leaned on the chair and felt the pressure of Fu Rong's fingers around his temples, and said with relief, "I wrote a resignation letter to Professor Dumbledore, and I decided to resign from the position of acting professor starting from the next academic year." The professor wrote to discuss the matter, and she agreed to return to Hogwarts early. Fu Rong was non-committal about this matter, but gave a soft hum. At this moment, Zhang Su's cell phone on the desk rang suddenly. Zhang Su picked up his mobile phone to check the caller number, and immediately walked to the balcony with his mobile phone. Seeing Zhang Su's serious face, Fu Rong left the room and walked upstairs to the bedroom. Fleur walked into the bedroom and saw Gabriel, who was sleeping soundly, kick a thin blanket to the floor, and then helped her cover the blanket. Although the temperature is very high during the day, the night in the mountains is still very cold. If you don't pay attention, you will still catch a cold. After covering Gabriel with a blanket, Fleur came to another bed in the room, took off the wooden shoes on her feet, and sat on the bed against the head of the bed. On the other side of the bed is a window. A curtain woven with some kind of herb unknown to hibiscus hangs on the window. The mosquitoes outside the room dare not take a step near the window. The moonlight outside the window spilled into the room through the cracks in the curtains. Fu Rong quietly looked at the curtains that were sometimes swayed by the evening wind, and listened attentively to the sound of Zhang Su's footsteps on the balcony downstairs while he was pacing on the phone. Fleur cannot hear the enchanted voice coming from the mobile phone. Even the voice of Zhang Su, who was holding the mobile phone, could not be heard. From outside the window, there was only the sound of Zhang Su's footsteps as he walked on the wooden floor of the balcony. About half an hour later, the sound of Zhang Su's footsteps came back to the room, followed by the exaggerated sound of Gudong drinking water. It wasn't until the sound of Zhang Su's footsteps came from the stairs and he walked into the next room that Furin finally felt relieved. There was no need to worry about him rushing to the distant place immediately after receiving the call. Early the next morning, Fu Rong was woken up by Gabriel and Zhang Su's fight in Zhang Su's room next door. After changing her clothes, Fu Rong grabbed Gabriel, who was urging Zhang Su to get up quickly from Zhang Su's room, and asked her to wait in the hall downstairs. After Zhang Su changed his clothes, finished washing and went downstairs, Gabriel, who couldn't wait, dragged him to the place where the bamboo baskets were laid by the river last night. In the early morning, the valley was shrouded in mist, and people were already working in the medicine fields. Gabriel trotted along the path by the river, leaving Fu Rong and Zhang Su behind. "What happened to the phone call last night?" Fu Rong asked, pretending to be absent-minded. "There's a problem in the UK, and the relevant department in charge of it just came to ask me about some things." Zhang Su replied casually, "They know that I am recuperating, so I don't have to go there together." Zhang Su didn't know that Fu Rong was worried about her own safety, and at the same time, she was also worried that she would be called away suddenly by a phone call, and that she might have to wait another year when she came back next time. Now Zhang Su didn't have to appear in person, so he simply called in for sick leave, and then spent the holiday in this undisputed place. Walking to the place where the bamboo basket was dropped yesterday, Gabriel had already used the floating spell to pick up the bamboo basket. Zhang Su went over to look at the harvest in a few bamboo baskets, and found that today's breakfast had been settled. After pouring the fish caught in several bamboo baskets into one bamboo basket, they were all put back into the river, and then the joyful Gabriel ran back to the Diaojiao with a bamboo basket of fish, while Zhang Su and Fu Rong while picking the dewy bracken on the side of the road. I walked back slowly. When Zhang Su and Fu Rong returned to the stilted building covered in dew, Scarlet had already processed all the eels caught this morning and used them to cook porridge, and was now frying the lotus fish. Today's breakfast is eel porridge, pan-fried lotus fish and cold bracken. Maybe these fish were brought back by Gabriel herself. She ate very delicious breakfast today. After breakfast, Scarlet went to the village to treat the sequelae of being affected by the Horcrux some time ago. Gabriel was freed by Fu Rong and Zhang Su. After being exposed to such an environment for the first time, she has gone crazy. She runs wildly by the river every day, sometimes watching the villagers working in the medicine field, sometimes by the river. I learned how to fish from others, and occasionally fought with the geese raised in the village. Everyone in the village knew that she was Zhang Su's future sister-in-law, so they didn't stop her. Instead, they tricked her into filming a set of commercials dim sum. It's just that Zhang Su looked at Gabriel, who was having more and more fun, and feared that her future painting style would become like a child. Besides accompanying Zhang Su, Furin was often dragged away by 7 ants and 8 ants. Sometimes we sit together under the tree at the head of the village, making mosquito-repellent sachets with herbs, and chatting about homework. Sometimes I was called to the house by that ant to help make some local snacks. Occasionally, I will be called by an ant to help take care of the herbs in the medicine field. Later, Zhang Su severely condemned the bad behavior of the elders for treating their daughter-in-laws as free labor, and said that if there were good meals and good food as rewards, then he would just turn a blind eye and close one eye. In the end, Zhang Su's attempt failed. Everyone in the village knew that he had to avoid food while he was recovering from his illness, so only sisters Furin and Scarlet got some delicious food. Zhang Su could only continue to eat and drink. But now Zhang Su has entered the mode of retired veteran cotters, and sometimes a pot of tea on the balcony can kill half a day. If you want to move, go to the small square by the river and play a few games of chess with the tourists who come for summer vacation and health preservation. Or go to the village head lake and listen to the old people over 90 years old in the village bragging and pouring chicken soup for the soul to the tourists. Sometimes when I was really hungry, I would sneak into the mountains to catch pheasants for tooth sacrifice. Later, Zhang Su simply set up an art booth in a corner of the small square, and painted a few landscape paintings to hang there. Tourists would throw money in the cash box next to them and take the paintings away. Zhang Su's ink paintings have now reached the level of entering the house, and many tourists buy his paintings as special products. When tourists took Zhang Su's paintings home and found that mosquitoes could not enter the room where the paintings were hung, when they tried to find Zhang Su again, they found that he had already disappeared into the sea of people. Chapter 352 Yes, Prime Minister. Just when Zhang Su entered the retirement mode, Fu Rong entered the 7 ants and 8 ants mode, and Gabriel was chased by a group of geese all over the village. Some people thousands of miles away are now in dire straits. At number 10 Downing Street, British Prime Minister Jim Harker sat alone behind his desk, rubbing his swollen and sore temples vigorously with the fingers of both hands. The frequent accidents that have occurred in recent times have almost caused the Prime Minister to have a nervous breakdown. Various disasters continue to occur, vicious criminal cases have increased significantly, and members of the opposition party can find places to attack him from the newspapers every day. It's just that although the Prime Minister knows the ins and outs of these incidents, he can't tell the truth to the people. Now it is not like 20 years ago, when something happens, it can be pushed to terrorist organizations. Moreover, the terrorists and those people have recently made no less noise than the terrorists in Northern Ireland. More importantly, these terrorists have created serious diplomatic problems. 5 minutes later, in the marble fireplace in the office, first a green flame burst out, and then a fat man spinning appeared in the green flame. Seeing the appearance of this fat man he knew, Jim Hack found that his head hurt even more. Although the fat man came out of the flame of forgiveness, Jim Hack didn't think he would forgive the fat man in front of him because after reading the information in the past year, Jim Hack discovered that the domestic magic world has become the current bad situation, and this fat man has to bear a lot of responsibility. A haggard Fudge sat across from the Prime Minister's desk, considering whether to deliver the bad news first or the worst news first. In front of the Muggle Prime Minister, Fudge has always had a natural sense of superiority, and he likes to watch the big man in front of him panic when facing the unknown world. However, today, Fudge felt that the Muggle Prime Minister's expression was different from usual. His previous forced calm expression was gone, replaced by a suppressed anger expression. Mr. Fudge, Jim Harker spoke first. There have been no giants on the island of Great Britain for many years. Can you explain where the giants we killed in Somerset came from? I also hope that the amnestics you send out on the future should have a better temper, otherwise what greets them will not be as simple as detention. Fudge was taken aback for a moment. He was just about to explain this matter to the Prime Minister, but he didn't expect to hear it from the Prime Minister's mouth first. Next, Jim Harker continued to ask, can you please explain what happened to the collapse of the Brockdale Bridge? Can your Ministry of Magic arrest the Death Eaters who destroyed the bridge? This terrorist attack caused a dozen cars to fall into the river, causing a large number of casualties, and one of the buses is full of foreign students. My God, the permanent members of the Security Council have been wiped out. Now I dare not meet our foreign minister at all. Every time he comes to see me there is no good news, and these countries all know who did this. They propose that if we can't arrest the murderer, they can send their own people to help. Do you know what that means? The more Jim Huck talked, the more angry he became, and the more he talked, the more excited he became. At the end of his talk, it was almost like swearing. Just as Fudge was about to say something, Jim Harker continued, in June, a train full of your students was hijacked by terrorists, and many of the students were children of taxpayers. Jim Huck likes to use taxpayer to address no magical British nationals, because His Excellency the Prime Minister found out that the wizarding world doesn't pay a penny of tax. Later, the injured students filled your St. Mago hospital, and some students were even seriously injured and unconscious for several days. The most important thing is that there are diplomats from other countries among the injured. Fudge didn't know why Jim Huck knew so many things in the magical world, and he didn't have any thought of defending these things at this time, just sat down on the chair decadently. And Jim Harker seemed to turn a blind eye to this, and kept asking Fudge why he hadn't taken any effective measures to stop this from happening this year. Jim Huck kept taking out the Daily Prophet with various labels from the drawer, satirizing how Fudge whitewashed the piece, and at the same time he took out youth magazines and even sang the opposite tune, reminding Fudge which prophecies in it were successful. Really? At this moment, there was a knock on the door of the Prime Minister's office. A staff member in a suit brought a document and handed it to the Prime Minister, then turned and left without looking at Fudge the whole time. After Jim Huck read the document in front of Fudge, he leaned back in his chair a little slumped, and after a while he said to Fudge, The Dementor is the one named Azkaban in the middle of the North Sea. Wardens of my prison, now that they are on the Isle of Great Britain, spreading misery and despair among my constituents, does that mean you have lost control of them? Fudge, who has been used as a punching bag by Jim Hack tonight, finally said the first sentence of the night. Yes, Prime Minister. After coming over for a while, Jim Hack said softly to Fudge, if you were the minister I nominated, you would have been fired by me a long time ago. Fudge's gray face suddenly turned red with excitement at this moment, as if the other party had said something extremely insulting to him. Wizards have always looked down on or even despised muggles. If a wizard's power comes from the appointment of muggles, it can be said to be a great insult to wizards. Fudge's anger at Scrimgeour's arrival quickly dissipated. Compared with Fudge, who has always been trying to cover up, Jim Harker believes that Scrimgeour, who is vigorous, is more suitable to be the Minister of Magic in this period. It's just that Scrimgeour's resolute actions caused Jim Harker a little displeasure. As soon as Scrimgeour entered the Prime Minister's office, he locked the door first. Just as he was about to close the window, two curses suddenly shot at him from the side. Under the sudden attack, Scrimgeour hastily used his wand to fight back, but he didn't expect that in the next second, more spells from other directions concentrated on him. Fudge didn't make a move because a wand was already on the back of his head. Not long after Scrimgeour fell to the ground under the spell, the door of the Prime Minister's office was opened from the outside, and several people escorted the disheveled Kingsley Shacklebolt into the office. Jim Harker kept frowning, and then said to his bodyguards, "Mr. Scrimgeour locked the door just out of caution, not to harm me. Let Kingsley go, he is still alive today. There is a lot of work to be done." Scrimgeour originally planned to come over tonight to talk to the Prime Minister about the other party's security issues, but he didn't expect that under the misunderstanding, even himself fell into it. Scrimgeour discovered that the Prime Minister's magical security was not strong enough, and that he had discovered the people he had inserted early on. After such a quarrel, neither side had the desire to continue a long speech. Jim Harker hoped that the Ministry of Magic would bring the Death Eaters who committed the crime to justice as soon as possible. Scrimgeour said he would do his best, and then the two guests from the wizarding world left from the fireplace. Chapter 353 Remember to eat dumplings when school begins. The days of the summer vacation passed day by day, and the time soon came to the day when the students took the train back to school. The atmosphere on the Hogwarts train today was obviously different from previous years. The students on the train were all nervous, afraid that the mysterious man in Death Eaters would visit the train again. Shortly after the drive, the students were reassured a bit when they saw a team of Aurors patrolling the train from end to end. Just as Professor Slughorn on the train invited the students to have lunch with him in compartment C, the first pot of dumplings in the Hogwarts kitchen was cooked. As the saying goes, eat enough dumplings at the beginning of school, and don't be a single dog in the coming year. Before school started, Zhang Su received a letter from Dumbledore asking him to come to Hogwarts earlier. When Zhang Su was sent to the hospital after being injured, he only saw Dumbledore once on the day when St. Mungo woke up. Dumbledore told him not to worry and left after school started. Zhang Su guessed that Loudang was scared away by his grandfather and father at that time, because the two of them had deliberately negotiated in English to demand a large amount of compensation from Hogwarts. Zhang Su returned to Hogwarts early this morning, and was immediately called to the Muggle Studies professor's office by Professor Bubbagee, who returned to Hogwarts after his suspension of pay was terminated early. The two discussed work handover and course the content was discussed all morning. Later, Professor Bubbagee proposed to let Zhang Su continue to serve as an acting professor to assist him in class, but Zhang Su still declined this suggestion. Professor Bubbagee saw that Zhang Su's face was a little pale, so he didn't continue to insist. When Zhang Su left the Muggle Studies professor's office, it was already lunchtime. When he came to the kitchen to get something to eat, he found that there were already people in the kitchen. Dumbledore was rolling out leather, and Professor Flitwick, the three deans, Professor Sprout and Snape, are making dumplings, while Professor McGonagall is taking out the first pot of dumplings that have been cooked. Zhang Su, who had made dumplings with the professors a year ago, was too lazy to complain about the scene in front of him. Just when Zhang Su rolled up his sleeves and was about to help, Dumbledore hurriedly said to him, "You just sit there and just eat today, Zhang." After Zhang Su sat down at the table, Professor McGonagall put a plate of dumplings in front of him and said, "Today, on behalf of Hogwarts, we thank you for your sacrifice and efforts to rescue the students." Zhang Su said something like this is what I should do, while taking the dumplings handed over by Professor McGonagall. Then the principal and the deans asked about Zhang Su's recovery. Zhang Su said that he could only rest for a long period of time and not be too exhausted. Everyone saw that Zhang Su's complexion was not very good, and his footsteps were a little frivolous, and they all thought it was the sequelae of him resisting more than 20 Cruciatus curse, and they didn't suspect that his current ghostly appearance was caused by other reasons. Dumbledore didn't have any special tasks to tell the deans today, but he repeatedly emphasized that everyone should be more vigilant this year, and notified the new and returning professors. After everyone finished eating the dumplings, Zhang Su followed Dumbledore to the principal's office. After sitting down in the office, Zhang Su hurriedly asked, "Are you okay, Professor?" Dumbledore just smiled and replied, "It's okay, I'm just a little tired." However, Zhang Su didn't believe Dumbledore's words, and continued to look at him with puzzled eyes. On the way to the principal's office, Zhang Su discovered that Dumbledore had a physical problem. Although Dumbledore tried his best to cover it up, Zhang Su couldn't hide his thinner figure. Seeing this, Dumbledore could only say, "It's not a serious problem. I paid a little price that day to defeat Voldemort quickly. Will it cause any serious sequelae?" Zhang Su asked. Dumbledore shook his head and said, "There won't be any serious consequences." Zhang Su believed that he had a ghost, but he didn't tell the truth, so he didn't continue to talk about this topic. Then Dumbledore took out a roll of parchment from the desk drawer, handed it to Zhang Su and said, "The Ministry of Magic has decided to award you the Order of Merlin, First Class, in recognition of your contributions and achievements that day sacrifice." Zhang Su opened the parchment and found that it was an invitation letter, inviting himself to the Ministry of Magic next weekend to attend the awarding party of the Order of Merlin. It can be seen from the exquisite invitation letter that the Ministry of Magic is going to make a big fuss about the awards show this time. In the past 2 months, the Ministry of Magic has been under great pressure on this matter, and the accusations against this matter in the media have never stopped. Rita Skeeter seemed to be eating stimulants, writing articles every 2 days, 360 degrees, and looking for trouble with the Ministry of Magic later. Not only the Ministry of Magic, but even Hogwarts was criticized by her. It can be seen from this that the Ministry of Magic is going to hold an awards show to celebrate the joy. "I hope Voldemort won't show up at the party that day," Zhang Su said while putting away the invitation letter. Dumbledore didn't talk. He said to Zhang Su, "Do you want to know what happened at the end of that day?" Zhang Su nodded. Of course he was curious about how Dumbledore drove Voldemort away. Dumbledore took the pensieve and put it on the desk, then invited Zhang Su to watch a 3D movie. In the 3D movie, after Zhang Su saw Dumbledore, members of the Order of the Phoenix and the Aurors come to the open space outside the train. Voldemort led the Death Eaters, escorted Harry Potter and dragged himself out of the carriage. At this moment, Karkaroff's name was recorded in Zhang Su's small notebook, because the guy dragged him like a dead dog to the outside of the carriage. Then there was a round of talk between Dumbledore and Voldemort. Dumbledore exchanged Harry Potter with the prophecy ball recorded by Trelawney 16 years ago and all the Death Eaters caught by the students and Zhang Su. In the end, there was a fight between Dumbledore and Voldemort, but Zhang Su didn't expect that Dumbledore would suppress Voldemort from the very beginning. It seems that in order to establish the concept that Voldemort can be defeated in front of everyone, Dumbledore used some methods of overdrawing his body to increase his strength. Zhang Su also ran to Voldemort's side specifically, and saw that after the initial shock, the expression on his face became a little playful. It can be seen that Voldemort also saw through Dumbledore's plan, so he spent time with Dumbledore there. As a result, Dumbledore did not give Voldemort a chance to enter the stalemate, and directly cast a curse on Voldemort's face. Chapter 354 Snape, IN number 039, "We've been waiting for this day for a long time." After watching the live video, Zhang Su reckoned that the Hogwarts train should arrive at Hogsmeade Station, so he talked about this year. Zhang Su can continue to live in the former professor's dormitory to recuperate and use the prefect's bathroom. Dumbledore let him go. After all, Zhang Su has merit and hard work, so it's not surprising that the headmaster gave him some privileges. Zhang Su left the principal's office, and when he came to the foyer, he happened to meet the students who had just entered the gate of the castle. "You're here early again, Zhang." Anthony Goldstein, the prefect in the same grade as Zhang Su, greeted him after seeing Zhang Su coming down the stairs. Zhang Su walked among the students, and many students around him were greeting him. After dealing with the classmates who greeted him, Zhang Su said to Anthony, because there are some things that need to be discussed with Professor Dumbledore in advance, so I came early. I just came out of the principal's office. Professor Dumbledore is really back? Anthony asked happily. That's right, Zhang Su replied. Professor Dumbledore has returned to Hogwarts Castle. At the end of last semester, Dumbledore was suspended later, after the news of Voldemort's return was flying all over the sky. The Daily Prophet reported in an obscure corner that the Ministry of Magic had resumed Dumbledore's job as headmaster and abolished a large number of education orders. It's just that the location of this report is a bit off. Many students didn't notice this piece of tofu in the newspaper. They still heard the news on the train. Now that this news was confirmed by Zhang Su, it quickly spread among the students, and exclamations broke out among the students from time to time. At this time, Zhang Su and his classmates had already walked into the cafeteria and sat down at the long table of their own college. After sitting down, Zhang Su poured cold water on Anthony and the others. The Hogwarts senior investigators appointed by the Ministry of Magic have not been removed, they just don't stay at Hogwarts anymore, Zhang Su said to the surrounding students. Anthony and the others were stunned when they heard the news. Zhang Su was also taken aback at the beginning, but only after he understood the detailed policy did he realize that the power of the senior investigator had shrunk. Now the duty of the senior investigator has become to assess the professor every few years, and when students are dissatisfied with a punishment made by the professor, they can appeal to the senior investigator, and the senior investigator will conduct an investigation. While eating dumplings at noon, Dumbledore told them about it. Dumbledore had his own considerations in this matter, so he took this as a compromise when negotiating with the Ministry of Magic, in exchange for other benefits. Who is the current senior investigator? Anthony asked. It's still Percy Weasley. Zhang Su replied. He still holds this position concurrently. Then what shall we do next? Anthony asked. There is nothing to do. Zhang Su replied. Those messy education orders have been abolished, and the remaining education orders are basically for professors, so everyone can do what they should do. Then don't you still have to be restricted by those education orders? Michael Kona, who was sitting next to Anthony, asked gloatingly. I have already resigned from the position of acting professor. I can't be too tired for a long time. Zhang Su pointed to his head and said, I returned to Hogwarts early this time just for the sake of a Dumbledore. Professor Leto has settled the matter. Anthony and Michael were relieved. Professor Bubblegee is back too, Zhang Su said after pointing to Professor Bubblegee, who was sitting on the professor's chair. From this year onwards, she will come back to continue teaching Muggle studies courses. Then do you know who the new Defense Against the Dark Arts professor is? Asked a student sitting opposite Zhang Su. Guess. Zhang Su replied with a smile. At this time, this year's sorting ceremony began. The sorting head is the same as last year. I hope everyone can unite to face the next danger. Then the freshmen go to their big families for the next 7 years under the assignment of the sorting hat. After the sorting ceremony, everyone started to eat. It's just that Zhang Su knew that in the original plan, there should be an event before the start of the meal, but he didn't know why it was temporarily cancelled by Dumbledore. It wasn't until after the main meal that Harry Potter walked into the cafeteria with his face covered in blood that Zhang Su figured out the reason. During the dessert time, many students were talking about the professors in the professor's chair. The professor's chair is full of work today. Many 7th grade students recognized Professor Carrie Dibbagy, and many of them had already guessed that Professor Zhang would resign due to health reasons. Few people knew Horace Slughorn, who was short and fat, and only the students who were invited to lunch by him on the train knew his name. The most conspicuous person on the professor's chair was Hagrid, who was expelled from the professor's team last year, and he sat on the professor's chair again today. In contrast, the rare appearance of Professor Trelawney in the divination class on the professor's seat failed to attract the attention of the students. After dessert time was over, Dumbledore stood up from the professor's chair. All the students in the cafeteria immediately shut their mouths. After a routine of pleasantries, Dumbledore began to introduce the professors. Professor Graplin resigned as a professor of the protection of magical animals for personal reasons. I think we should all give Professor Hagrid a chance. The students were whispering below, and the cafeteria suddenly turned into a beehive, with a sound of buzzing. Dumbledore didn't see any students jumping out to object, so he took it as the students' acquiescence. Dumbledore went on to say, due to reasons that everyone knows, Mr. Zhang, the acting professor of the Muggle Studies class, suffered a very serious injury not long ago. In order to recover from his injuries, he applied to resign as the acting professor. Therefore, we please bring back Professor Carrie Dibagi to continue as Professor of Muggle Studies. As soon as Dumbledore finished speaking, there was a thunderous sound in the cafeteria. This sound is not to welcome Professor Carrie Dibagi, let alone to send off Professor Zhang, but to pay tribute to Zhang's self-sacrifice some time ago. After a while, after the applause stopped, Dumbledore introduced a third professor. Next, I will introduce our third professor this year, said Dumbledore. Professor Horace Slughorn has agreed to return to Hogwarts to resume his old career as potions professor. The students in the audience fell into a daze again, and exclamations kept ringing out from somewhere. Horace Slughorn, unmoved by the exclamation, stood up and greeted the students. Then Dumbledore announced in a very loud voice, at the same time, Professor Snape will be the Professor of Defense Against the Dark Arts class. Before the students had time to be dazed, a loud shout rang out from the long table in the Lion Court. No, Harry Potter yelled, so loudly that the whole cafeteria looked at him. But then another voice sounded beside Harry. Then we won't see Professor Snape next year. Chapter 355 Honest Ron. The air suddenly fell into silence. There are some things that everyone knows, but they are just tacit. But when it was suddenly pierced, it brought only endless embarrassment. Fortunately, Dumbledore ignored this and announced the precautions for this school year. After Dumbledore announced that the dinner was over, the students walked out of the cafeteria and towards their common room. When they first walked to the foyer, Zhang Su and the others met Harry's trio. Zhang Su walked to Ron's side, patted him on the shoulder, and said to him in a very heavy tone, "Isn't it good to live?" Before Ron could react, Zhang Su walked away. The next moment, Anthony Goldstein patted Ron's shoulder like Zhang Su did, and said in a sad tone, "You are worthy of being a brave Gryffindor." Immediately afterwards, Michael Kona came over and patted Ron on the shoulder like the previous two and said to him, "You are too honest, what are you talking about?" In the end, Terry Butte also patted Ron on the shoulder and said, "Eat more recently." After the guy from the Eagle Yard finished teasing Ron, he walked towards his common room without looking back, leaving only Ron standing there with a dazed expression on his face. Along the way, many students were discussing the big truth that Ron just said. After all, the position of Professor of Defense Against the Dark Arts is too evil. Good end. Fortunately, none of the students at Hogwarts likes to gamble, otherwise some students would follow up now. Zhang Su returned to the common room while talking about Snape's tragic future with Anthony and the others. It's just that after they entered the common room, they realized that something was wrong with the atmosphere. Zhang Su took a look and saw that the source of the low air pressure in the common room was a table of 6th grade girls. Zhang Su and Anthony walked over and found Padma Patil, the 6th grade female prefect, sitting among several girls with her head bowed. "What's the matter, Padma?" Zhang Su asked. "What happened?" Padma raised her head to look at Zhang Su, and then said in a very sad tone, "My family thinks that Britain is no longer safe, and the family plans to take me and my sister home." After Zhang Su and the others heard it, they could only sigh. Then Zhang Su said to her in a firm tone, "Don't worry, with Professor Dumbledore around, we are safe at Hogwarts." After Padma and the other girls heard Dumbledore's name, their expressions improved a little. However, some Ravenclaw students still understood another meaning in Zhang Su's words: if Dumbledore dies, everyone should run away. As for whether Dumbledore will hang up on this question, it is estimated that except for a very few people in Hogwarts, no one else has seriously considered it. The students followed Zhang Su's words one after another. "With Professor Dumbledore among us, we are naturally safe. I think Professor Dumbledore can be headmaster for another 50 years. Even if something happens to Professor Snape, Professor Dumbledore will be fine." Padma glanced at Zhang Su, and was about to say something, but she looked at the students around her again, and then chose to shut up. "Is there anything else, Padma?" Zhang Su noticed her abnormality and asked her. Padma delayed for a second, and then replied, "Your body is fine, Zhang." At this time, the students around all cast a questioning look at Zhang Su. "Zhang Zazi," she replied indifferently, "there is no major problem, but it will take a long time to rest in the next period of time, so it can't be too sad." After hearing that Zhang Su had no major problems, the students were all relieved. After chatting for a few words, Zhang Su went back to his dormitory in Yingling to rest. After returning to his dormitory, Zhang Su took out a bottle of potion and suffocated it in one breath. After Zhang Su took off his robe and put on his pajamas, he suddenly thought of something, So he called Dobby to the empty space in the room. After a pop, Dobby appeared in Zhang Su's bedroom. Go and tell Peeves, Nick and Fat Friar that they will pay close attention to Draco Malfoy's actions from today onwards. This matter must be kept secret. Zhang Su said to Dobby, if he has anything strange, if you can't notify me, please notify Professor Dumbledore or Professor McGonagall. After Zhang Su finished speaking, Dobby bowed to Zhang Su, and then disappeared with a pop. The biggest variable in this school year is Draco Malfoy, but how to deal with him depends on what Dumbledore means. After arranging this matter, Zhang Su got into bed and slept. Silent all night. The next morning, after breakfast, Zhang Su came to the classroom of the Ancient Magic text class. The NITS course is different from the previous courses. Only students whose grades and OWLs meet the requirements of the professor can come to the class. Therefore, the number of students in the NITS course is much less than before, and basically students from the 4 colleges attend the class together. And in the Ancient Magic text class, there are even fewer students participating in the NITS class. In the last school year, Professor Babbling asked Zhang Su to continue to choose his own courses in this school year. Although Zhang Su did not intend to give up this course, Zhang Su was still a little curious about Professor Babbling's request. The difficulty of the 6th grade Ancient Runes class was no longer at the same level as that of previous years. In the first 3 years, the main content taught in the class was how to translate the rune, but starting this year, Professor Babbling began to teach students how to use the rune to translate magic. In Zhang Su's view, learning ancient runes is similar to learning computer languages. After the class ended, Zhang Su was left behind by Professor Babbling. Professor Babbling said to Zhang Su, Zhang, you are my student who has mastered the ancient rune the best in the past few years. Although I heard from Professor Flitwick that your future work has nothing to do with my course, but I hope you can take the study of ancient runes as a way of pastime or passing the time in your spare time. Looking at the puzzled Zhang Su, Professor Babbling explained, up to now, the research and use of ancient runes has gone through thousands of years, and now its development has entered a bottleneck period. In recent years, the research on ancient runes has not published the results of great strides. Therefore, we pin our hopes on the leaders who have succeeded in other fields, and hope that they can give ancient runes new vitality from a new perspective. Seeing Professor Babbling's sincere eyes, Zhang Su nodded in agreement. Anyway, it's not about changing his career. If he just uses his brain to reinterpret the ancient rune in his spare time, Zhang Su thinks he can still accept it. After all, Zhang Su is using this class to pass the time, and he doesn't have too many requirements for his grades. The ONL's grades is purely due to his talent and intelligence, so it's not bad for him to use it for entertainment in the future. After seeing Zhang Su agreeing, Professor Babbling handed him a book. After Zhang Su took the book, he found on the cover that the runes read from getting started to giving up. Chapter 356 Snape and Number 039, S First Lesson. Zhang Su arrived at the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom 1 minute before class. Due to Snape's high requirements, not many students could take this class. It's just that as soon as Zhang Su entered the classroom and looked around, he had the urge to challenge Snape. The originally bright classroom was abruptly arranged in the style of a basement by Snape. The bright sunlight outside the window was blocked by the thick black curtains, and candles were lit in the dark classroom in broad daylight. This kind of waste of candles was naturally not the reason why Zhang Su wanted to challenge Snape. After all, he didn't need to ask him to reimburse the cost of burning candles. On the wall in the classroom, there was a picture apparently posted by Snape. The content of the picture was the situation of a person who suffered from black magic, such as a pool of blood on the ground after being attacked by a necromancer, and was sucked by a Dementor. The wizard who lost his soul after taking his soul, and Zhang Su, who was tortured by the Cruciatus curse and sweated profusely. Just when Zhang Su was thinking about whether to challenge Snape or let Peeves trouble him, it was time for class. I haven't asked you to take out your books yet, Snape said to the students as he walked towards the podium. Then Snape disparaged his colleagues in the past few years, and then he boasted clearly. Then Snape stepped down from the podium and said in a low, yet reverent voice, "Dark magic is of great variety, and infinity. To fight it is like fighting Hydra. Cut off a head, grow 2 heads." Then Snape walked to those portraits while talking, pointed to one portrait and said, "These paintings show different victims, such as this one being kissed by a Dementor." Then Snape pointed to the next portrait and said, "This is being attacked by an inferi." At this time, Parvati Patil raised his hand and asked, "So, has anyone here seen a ghost?" After confirming that the two-hole socket man had used the inferi, Snape glanced at Harry Potter and asked, "Does anyone know how to deal with the inferi?" As soon as Snape finished speaking, Hermione, the score queen of the Lion Academy, and Zhang Su, the point grabber of the Eagle Academy, raised their hands at the same time. However, Snape didn't even look at the two of them, but pointed to Ron and said, "Weasley, you answer this question." As a result, Ron stood up and said, "Infernal corpses are afraid of fire. You can use fire to destroy them, Professor." Zhang Su, who was holding back a smile, saw that Snape's face was a little unnatural. Snape probably believed that Ron would not have previews in this area, but he didn't expect Ron to do it in the 4th grade. Infernal corpse. Snape let Ron sit down with a cold face, and then reluctantly awarded Gryffindor a point. After that, Zhang Su couldn't laugh anymore. Instead, the students in the classroom were laughing, because Snape walked in front of the painting that showed Zhang Su suffering from the Cruciatus curse. It's just that Snape didn't laugh, but looked at Zhang Su with great interest and said, "Why don't we let Mr. Zhang talk about the Cruciatus curse?" At this moment, all the students in the classroom fell silent and looked at Zhang Su quietly. Zhang Su took out an empty medicine bottle from his pocket speechlessly, then tapped his head with his magic wand, pulled out a memory from his mind, and put it in the bottle. Zhang Su put the bottle containing the silver-like gas on the table, and said to Snape, "I think I can feel it myself, and it will deepen the impression, Professor." Snape walked to Zhang Su's desk, took a look at Zhang Su, took the bottle on the table, then took out a pensieve from the shelf behind the podium, and put the pensieve on the shelf in front of the podium. After putting it away, pour the memory in the bottle into the basin. Zhang Su's memory is different from the memory of others in the past. This is what he learned after consulting Dumbledore. The Master of Memory feels the same way. Zhang Su himself did not expect that this magic, full of car exhaust, would be used in defense against the dark arts class. "Who goes first?" Snape asked, looking at the students. Many students shuddered as they remembered the painful spider that the fake Moody used to demonstrate the Cruciatus curse to them in this classroom 2 years ago. The first to be the student Snape pointed out was actually Draco Malfoy. Student Xioma tremblingly walked to the podium, and put his face into the pensieve under the attention of the students. As a result, Malfoy quickly stood up on his back with a yell, and then his legs softened and he sat on the ground directly. At this time, there was no trace of blood on his originally pale face. His head was covered with sweat, and his whole body was trembling unceasingly. Zhang Su estimated the time, and it probably looked like he had experienced 2 or 3 Cruciatus curse. The next student named by Snape was Ron. Ron did much better than Malfoy, and escaped from the pensieve after experiencing about 6 or 7 Cruciatus curse. After the two experienced it, Snape no longer asked other students to continue to experience it. He said, "Everyone has seen that the black magic you are about to face is so dangerous and fierce." Then Snape put away the pensieve, and said, "Well, I guess you're new to silent spells. So, what good are silent spells?" Zhang Su snatched this question from Hermione's hands, and he replied, "If you don't read the spell aloud when you cast the spell, you can achieve an unexpected effect. You can even make the spell you read different from the spell you actually use." 2 spells. The answer is basically correct, Snape said. 5 points for Ravenclaw. Then Snape continued, "Silent spells require great concentration and willpower, and not everyone can do it." Then Snape divided the students into 2 groups and asked them to try one to attack and one to defend. Zhang Su was randomly assigned to a group with Padma Paddle. Padma's 2 curses made sound, and they were all blocked by the iron armor curse silently cast by Zhang Su. Seeing that Padma was a little anxious, Zhang Su said to her, "Don't be nervous, use your best and most skilled spell. Don't deliberately keep quiet, you can chant the spell softly first, and feel the flow of magic power carefully, and then recite the spell with a softer and softer voice when casting the spell, until in the end you just recite the spell in your head without making a sound out of your mouth." Zhang Su didn't deliberately cover up his voice. After hearing this, the students around him started to try the method Zhang Su said. They had already seen that Zhang Su had already mastered the silent spell, so they thought it must be right to do what Zhang Su said. Snape also heard Zhang Su's words not far away, glanced at him and said nothing. Padma adjusted her mood, waved her magic wand and shot her best spell at Zhang Su. How cold when Padma's wand was waving, Zhang Su put an iron armor curse on himself. When Padma cast the spell this time, the voice of the mantra was very soft. Zhang Su, who was standing opposite her, only saw her small mouth move. If she didn't pay attention, she would not be able to hear her chanting the mantra. Padma's spell hit Zhang Su's armor, and it bounced off with a bang. When there were still 10 minutes before the get out of class ended, Padma successfully completed the spell casting without opening her mouth. It's just that Padma's success was accompanied by many students being hit by the bounced spell and falling into the state of I'm playing with mud in the northeast. This forced Zhang Su to use the petrification spell to immobilize the dancing students first, and then undo the spell on them. Just as he was about to finish class, a loud bang caught Zhang Su's attention. He turned his head and saw that Harry finally had a conflict with Snape. After class, Zhang Su was stopped by two sisters, Parvati Patil and Padma Patil, in the corridor. The twin sisters looked around at the students coming and going, and seemed to swallow the words they had written. Padma Patil, who was a little more familiar with Zhang Su, said in a low voice, "Are you free tonight, Zhang? We have something to tell you." Zhang Su looked at the pair of sisters who were hesitant to talk, and remembered that Padma seemed to have something to say to him when she was in the common room last night, so he said to them, "Then at 8 o'clock tonight, you come to the professor's dormitory where I used to live, and I will live there recently." After getting Zhang Su's answer, the twin sisters left. Chapter 357 Harry Potter, the Half-Blood Prince and the Mysterious Student, Part, At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Harry Potter and Ron arrived at the potions classroom in the basement before class started. In the corridor in front of the classroom door, Harry saw Zhang Su, who was chatting with several students of Eagle Academy. Just as Harry was about to go up and have a chat with him, the classroom door opened, and Slughorn came out to welcome the students into the classroom. It's just that Harry doesn't like the way Slughorn is overly enthusiastic about himself, and always feels that he has something for him. After the students walked into the classroom, they found that there was a strange smell of water vapor. After entering the classroom, everyone looked curiously at a row of steaming cauldrons in the classroom. Harry thought it was the first time he had smelled such a tempting smell, and his mind simultaneously had his favorite self-heating hot pot, his favorite broomstick, and sneaking out of the shabby house with Ginny on summer vacation night's time of residence. The next moment, Harry's body shook, and he immediately came back to his senses. He has already noticed that this smell is not simple. If Dementors can make his mind fear the most, then this strange smell in the classroom is the opposite, and it can make him think of his favorite things. Harry looked around and found that all the students in the classroom had satisfied expressions on their faces. Harry was relieved when he discovered that the smell came from one of the cauldrons in the classroom. Since it was refined by Professor Slughorn and placed in the classroom, it meant it was harmless. That's when Slughorn called everyone's attention to him, and then asked everyone to get out their textbooks, scales, and other classroom utensils. That's when Harry remembered that neither he nor Ron had textbooks or other supplies. After popping the question to Slughorn, Harry and Ron were given utensils such as old textbooks and old scales. Then the course officially started. Slughorn said to the students with his bulging belly, "I once asked Professor Snape about the situation of your courses. I have to say that the development of potions class in the past few years is really too fast. New equipment and new methods have greatly improved the refining efficiency of potions. It's just that the preparation of the potion we are about to learn takes too long, so I think the preparation steps such as the determination of the active ingredients of the materials can be done in advance before class. And I will hand over the step to the lower grade students in their spare time. Done. Let them have more opportunities to touch this wonderful world. So, for today's potion refining, everyone should follow the old method in the book. The next class starts. After we are ready, we will explore the new world together." Slughorn's words did not arouse much reaction from the students. After all, every professor has his own style. If they change their style rashly, it may cause the old driver to overturn. After talking about this, Slughorn walked to the row of cauldrons and said, "I have prepared several potions out of interest to open your eyes. Can anyone tell me the names of these potions?" Zhang Su, who was addicted to the taro braised pork, sweet and sour pork tenderloin, braised lion head and Buddha jumping wall brought by the love potion, took a step back and let Hermione, who was sitting on the next table, take the first kill of this class. Then it was time for Hermione to perform, and she perfectly answered the names and properties of Veritaserum, Polyjuice Potion, and Love Potion. What followed was a wave of business bragging between Slughorn and Hermione, with Hermione earning 20 points in the end. Next, Slughorn looked at Zhang Su, who was a little slower just now, and said to him, "Can you tell me what you think about them, Mr. Zhang?" Zhang Su was a little surprised. He didn't expect Slytherin to give himself points on this question. Zhang Su stood up, sorted out his thoughts, and said, I think the effects of Veritaserum and Love Potion are similar to those of the Imperious Curse. As soon as Zhang Su finished speaking, the students in the classroom were in an uproar. They didn't expect that these two potions could be related to the Unforgivable Curse. And Slytherin just nodded slightly, waiting for Zhang Su to continue. Zhang Su continued, the Imperious Curse can make people's minds go blank, making people indulging in false happiness and joy, and then there's a voice in people to accomplish something. And Veritaserum and Love Potion are about the same. Veritaserum will imply that people are telling the truth. Love Potion suggests that you will fall in love with someone. Correct answers, said Slytherin. You can only appreciate that after experiencing them. Zhang Su didn't pick up on this, but continued, the compound decoction is related to human body deformation. Its function is like a human body deformation that exerts specific effects on people. If it is used incorrectly, it can also make people take on other animal traits, like cat people. In the next second, Zhang Su was attacked by someone's sight. After talking about the three potions, Zhang Su followed Slytherin's routine and said, if I'm not mistaken, the golden potion in that small black cauldron should be Felix Elixir. Ho ho, Slytherin laughed twice with his characteristic laughter, and then said to Zhang Su, that's right, Mr. Zhang. You should know what it does. It is a lucky medicine that can bring good luck to people. Zhang Su replied, but his tone was somewhat disapproving. Zhang Su, who had obtained a little Felicia from other sources, tried its effects. The most intuitive function of Felicia is to improve the human body's various sensory abilities, improve thinking and computing capabilities, deeply tap memory, and improve intuition, etc. After drinking it, the overclocked high-speed brain can make people make the right choice. But for 10 consecutive draws, double color balls and the like, the conclusion of Zhang's personal test is that it is useless at all. And Zhang Su really wanted to study Felicia Potion, and then see if he could make Murphy's Potion with the opposite effect. Slytherin was very satisfied with Zhang Su's answer, and after letting Zhang Su sit down, he talked about the advantages of Felicia, the scope of prohibited use, and the consequences of abuse. After adding 30 points to Zhang Su, Slytherin continued his lecture. Next, Slytherin announced that today he would take out a small bottle of Felicia Felix as a prize for today's class. All of a sudden, the students in the classroom became excited, eager to try and win this bottle of Felicia. But Zhang Su didn't catch a cold. There's still a pot of Felicia in the classroom. If Zhang Su wants it, he can go to Professor Slytherin with gold coins. Professor, how much is Felicia per pound? Give me 2 pounds. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 358 Harry Potter, the Half-Blood Prince and the Mysterious Student, Part, comma. Not all students are as rich and self-willed as Zhang Su, so they all work hard. Harry Potter is also one of them. Harry rummaged through his dirty old textbooks, looking for instructions on how to make a potion of living hell. However, when Harry opened the textbook, he found that the textbook was filled with words, and there was almost no blank space. Under Harry's careful discrimination, he recognized that most of these added words were notes on the ingredients and production process of the potion. Harry was very troubled by these annotations at this time. When he finally identified the ingredients of the raw materials, and brought them back from the storage cabinet to start rough processing, the progress bar of Hermione's alchemy was almost halfway through. When Harry finished processing the Valerian root and looked at the next step in the textbook, he was in a daze. The person who scribbled on the textbook disagreed with the treatment method described in the textbook, and wrote another note in the margin, squeezing with the side of a silver knife is easier to juice than slicing. And below this note, there are several notes with obviously different handwriting. I think it's more convenient to use a juicer. If you don't have a juicer, you can cut the sleepy beans in half and squeeze them with a vice. You can squeeze it with your hands if you can. It is forbidden to directly eat the juice of sleepy beans, unless you ask someone to borrow money and let the other party take it, because it can cause memory loss. Harry was overwhelmed for a while, so he immediately asked Grandpa Gandalf in the glasses for help. And Grandpa Gandalf told Harry that these methods are all right. So Harry decided to follow the method in the textbook first, but shriveled beans are not easy to cut, and he felt that it would be faster to saw them with a saw. At this time, Harry planned to try the method in other people's notes in the book, but he didn't have a juicer or a vice on hand. These things should be available in Private Drive, but they should be found in Hogwarts. No, and he didn't think he could squeeze by hand. Harry turned to Hermione and asked her to borrow a silver knife. Hermione, whose progress bar was stuck at 98, agreed to Harry's request impatiently. Harry hurriedly squeezed out a large amount of bean juice from sleepy beans, as the notes in the textbook said. Seeing the usefulness of the remarks, Harry was buoyed up and started the next step. Next, Harry saw a note appear next to the next item in the textbook that said the potion must be stirred counterclockwise. Just now, the note in the handwriting of the silver dagger said that it should be stirred counterclockwise 7 times, and then clockwise once. However, the note in another handwriting below contains several lines of words. The first line only says segregation, and then draws it later. In the back, it is written such as stirring in one direction makes the precipitate less disturbed, the molecular chain is longer, and the filament shape is more obvious. Reverse stirring will cause the long chain of the polymer to break and degrade. The violent stirring effect causes large molecular chain segments. Stress change can be understood by each letter, but the contents cannot be understood when all of them are connected. And on the penultimate line, it said can carry out type stirring all the way Harry understood it. Harry asked Grandpa Gandalf for help again, but Grandpa Gandalf said that the first one is theoretically feasible, and the latter can be tried. Harry was also caught in a contradiction at this time. These notes should be left by students who used this textbook before, and these 2 students should be very talented students in potions. The success of squeezing the sleepy bean juice just now shows that the first student is reliable, so is the method of the second student equally reliable? Harry looked at Hermione's cauldron next to him, and found that her progress had reached 98.5, while Malfoy's progress bar hadn't reached 90. Anyway, if Hermione got the Felix elixir, if I ask her to borrow it, she probably won't refuse. Harry thought to himself. So Harry decided to take a gamble and try the mixing method that the second student noted. Harry stirred according to the method in the notes, and the potion in the cauldron turned pale pink at a speed visible to the naked eye. How did you do that? Hermione asked in surprise as she looked at the potion in Harry's cauldron that had reached 99.9 completion progress. At this moment, the potion in her cauldron was still purple. 7 times counterclockwise and then 1 clockwise, or like a butterfly wing like me, Harry whispered to her. Then Harry glanced at the last line of notes in the textbook, and deliberately said in a voice that Malfoy at the next table could hear, the potion can be stirred counterclockwise very vigorously. Meanwhile, Harry turned to Hermione. It's just that Hermione didn't notice Harry's little movement. She just looked at her textbook and said, no, no, no. The textbook says to stir counterclockwise. Harry didn't continue talking, just continued to stir the potion according to the method in the book. Harry took a look at Ron's situation. Judging by the color of the potion in the cauldron, he had clearly failed. Soon, Slughorn said loudly, "Good time everyone, please stop stirring." At this moment, Malfoy's cauldron exploded, and Malfoy, who was vigorously stirring the cauldron, was blown into a big black face. Harry turned his head and smiled at his pony classmate. The last line in the notes in his textbook read, "No vigorous stirring, it will explode." Slughorn went over to check on Malfoy, and seeing that he was fine, he said, "You're stirring too vigorously." Then Slughorn began to examine the objects in the students' cauldrons. Although he didn't make any verbal comments from me, his inner evaluation could be seen from his expression. The look on Slughorn's face only started to improve when he walked over to Harry's table. He nodded in satisfaction as he reached Hermione's cauldron. The next second, when he saw the potion in Harry's cauldron, a surprised expression appeared on his face. "Perfect potion of living hell," cried Slughorn. "Excellent, Harry, you have inherited Lily's excellent gifts. Your mother is possessed at this moment. Take it, here is your Felicia, make good use of it." After handing the Felix Felicia into Harry's hands, Slughorn continued on to the next table of students. When Slughorn came to the last table and saw the potion in Zhang Su's cauldron, he said loudly again, "My God, I can't believe it, it's another perfect living hell potion." Wait, Slughorn, as if he suddenly discovered something novel, kept stirring the potion in Zhang Su's crucible with a silver spoon, then took a spoonful and put it under his nose to smell it for a long time. "You made some changes to it," Slughorn said, his eyes widened, looking at Zhang Su in surprise. "Yes, Professor." Zhang Su nodded and replied, "I added a little juice of Ningxen Ko to it, which can make people enter a deep sleep. Then I added some that did not affect the efficacy of the medicine and could improve the taste. Herbs, Let their taste neutralize the bitterness of Ningxenkyo, so that the potion becomes a strawberry flavor with a better taste. You know, I need them to cooperate with my treatment recently. Slughorn looked at Zhang Su in surprise, and said to him, can you share half of the potion with me? If you still need it, you can come to me. I will allow you to use the potion classroom to refine it. No problem, Professor. Zhang Su replied. You are today's winner too, and you can get a bottle of Felicia, Slughorn said. When he saw Harry's potion just now, he couldn't help but think of Harry's mother, so he sent out the good product without reading all the students' potions out of excitement. Now that he has seen better ones, it is naturally impossible to take back the Felicity elixir given to Harry and give it back to Zhang Su, so he just filled another bottle and gave it to Zhang Su. After all, there's still a part there. It's just that Zhang Su said to Slughorn, I have a small request, Professor. I don't want ready-made Felicity elixir. I want to refine Felicity elixir by myself under your guidance. Slughorn re-examined Zhang Su seriously, then nodded and agreed, very well, you are a very motivated student, Mr. Zhang. When you think you are ready, you can come to me at any time. The students in the classroom looked at Zhang Su enviously, because just now Slughorn added 50 points to Eagle House for his Living Hell potion, while Harry's original version only had to add 20 points. Chapter 359 Harry Potter, the Half-Blood Prince and the Mysterious Student, Part, After potions class, Ron and Hermione wanted to ask Harry how he made such a perfect Living Hell potion just now, but Harry pulled them away with a smile and no words. There is still Malfoy in the classroom who has been blown into daze. Now is not the time to talk about this. Harry's trio came to the dining table in the cafeteria and sat down in a place where there were not many people around. Seeing that the students next to him were not paying attention to him, Harry said to Ron and Hermione, I have something nice to show you. Then Harry took out a dirty old textbook on advanced potions making from his school bag and placed it in front of Ron and Hermione. When Harry turned to the page where he made the Living Hell potion just now, he pointed to the notes on the book and said to the two good friends beside him, look, I just follow the method described here. That's why the potion of Living Hell was perfectly made. Ron looked at the densely packed small characters on the original blank space of the textbook, with envy on his face. Seeing Ron's expression, Harry naturally knew what he was thinking, so he said to him, I can lend you this textbook anytime, buddy. Really? Ron looked at Harry in surprise, for fear that Harry would regret it the next moment. Of course it's true, Harry said, nodding. Wait. Hermione, who was on the side, interrupted the conversation between the two brothers. You just followed what was written above without confirming that they are not abnormal. At least practice has proved that the above is correct. Harry replied with a nod of his head. Whether it is the method of juicing the sleepy beans, the method of stirring, or the prohibited items, all of them are correct. You haven't thought about what to do if something happens, Hermione said to Harry with a dark face. But student Harry obviously didn't think about this problem. He just faltered and said something like, isn't this a success? At this time Ron said, these are just small tricks to increase the success rate. Even if it is dangerous, it won't be too bad. You see, Malfoy just got blackened. At this moment, a soft little hand rested on Harry's right shoulder, and a red head rested on his left shoulder, rubbing Harry's face at the same time. Ron seemed to be suffering from a severe cough, and his abnormal cough could be heard throughout the cafeteria. Ginny ignored her sixth brother who was about to cough up his lungs, but said to Harry in a panic, you have been following instructions written in a book by someone else. Harry, it's not the same as that diary, Harry said after patting Ginny's head. It's just ordinary tips recorded in ordinary textbooks. Then Harry ignored his buddy's coughing, pointed to the densely packed letters on the book and said, look, there are obviously two people's handwriting here. Judging from the content, they should not know each other. If this is a book dark magic item, so the person who made it didn't need to spend so much effort. But you did what it said? Ginny asked worriedly. Yes, Harry replied, and I didn't encounter the situation of being confused or ordered during the whole process. I was sober throughout the whole process. Then you have to check this textbook carefully, said Hermione. At this moment, a rich dinner appeared on the table. Harry pointed to dinner and said, I think we should fill our stomachs first before checking this textbook. After Harry and the others finished their dinner, they came to the 5th floor, found an empty classroom and got in. Harry and his party lit the candles in the classroom, then found a table, put the old textbook on making advanced potions on the table. Harry, Ron, Hermione and Ginny gathered around the table, Four people look I look at you. After everyone got ready, Hermione raised her wand and pointed at the old textbook. The original form is now 0 in the end. Nothing appeared, nothing changed. The textbook was still such a tattered old textbook, not even the smudges on it changed a bit. Harry shrugged and said, "Okay, it looks like it's alright, it's indeed an old textbook." Then Harry looked at the few people next to him who were relieved, and said to them, "Why don't we take a look at what's written inside?" Ron and Ginny immediately nodded curiously, and after Hermione thought about it for a while, her thirst for knowledge overcame her worries about the unknown textbook. So Harry and the four of them began to read this magical old textbook on advanced potion making in the empty classroom. Hermione took out a piece of parchment and an automatic quill, and began to sort out the notes in the textbook. There are two people who write notes in the textbook. The first one with scribbled handwriting is obviously earlier, while the second one with some strange handwriting is later. Basically, where there is writing in number 1, there is a second person's research experience and praise in some places. The second person wrote a lot of weird research content. At this time, all four of them had a question in their minds: who is the person who scribbled on this textbook? In the textbook, in addition to tips on making potions, there are also many small curses and small magics invented by number 1 in scribbled handwriting, and beside these curses and magics, there must be a second person's review of these jinxes and spells. For example, next to a curse that can make people's toes grow wildly, the second person wrote a comment like a must for old drivers, which made Harry and the others puzzled. "Maybe it's a way to make people step on the gas and brake better," said Ron, who used to drive the family's flying car. "Huh?" Harry seemed to have suddenly discovered something. "What's the matter, Harry?" Ginny asked, looking up. Harry pointed to the spell written on the original margin of the textbook and said, "I know this spell. Sirius taught me." "Fuchsia," Ron said suspiciously, "it seems that you used it on Malfoy before." At this time, Hermione pointed to the 2 lines on the book and said, "I think you will remember this sentence next time you use this spell." Harry looked over and saw the second person writing beside him, "Danger if you are not careful when breaking the spell, you can break your neck. Those who use this magic on girls will be sentenced to death. Maybe Sirius and Lupin should know something," said Harry. Then they turned a few more pages, and found that there was another spell called Shen Feng Wuang written in the blank space, and there were 3 small words against the enemy below it. On the side, the second person wrote, "Extremely dangerous, can easily cut off a person's neck, and can only be used against the enemy of life and death." Harry and the 4 of them raised their heads and looked at each other after watching it. It was the first time they had seen a second person make such a stern warning comment on a spell. However, at this moment, the die or die factor in Harry's body was activated, and he really wanted to try this seemingly powerful spell. It was Hermione who first felt something was wrong with Harry. She said to Harry sternly, "Harry, don't think about using this spell. It's obviously a wicked black magic." "I don't want you to try either," Ginny said to Harry, "it's too dangerous." Harry looked at Hermione and Ginny, and said, "Dish Shen Feng Wuang Chapter 360 Sister Paddle and number 039, S Troubles." Harry, Hermione, and Ginny, who were about to speak, were taken aback by the shout at the same time. They turned to look at Ron, and saw that Ron tried to use this spell on the desks and chairs in the classroom. In the sound of cracking, the tables and chairs, which seemed to be split in half by an invisible big sword, fell to the ground one after another. Hermione's angry roar resounded through the classroom instantly. "I just think this spell is familiar," Ron said while thinking hard. "I seem to have seen someone use such a spell somewhere." Then Ron whipped the corpses of the seats scattered on the ground with Shen Feng Wuang. Ugh! Ginny's long sigh attracted Harry and the 3 of them's attention. "I remember, I know where I've seen this magic," Ginny said to the other 3. "Where?" Hermione asked hastily. "Our kitchen," Ginny replied calmly. Cyrillic lettered X. The 3 of Harry couldn't figure out the meaning of what Ginny said for a while, and looked at Ginny in a daze. Ginny gave them a blank look, and said, "It's Zhang. You guys never help out in the kitchen, so it's rare to see him use this spell. Remember Zhang lived in our house for a while before? He often went to the kitchen to help Mother with work. I've seen him peel potatoes and chop onions several times in the kitchen using this spell." After the Harry trio continued to be dazed for a while, they finally came to their senses. "No wonder I've seen that spell somewhere by feel," said Ron suddenly. "I remember seeing him chopping wood in the garden once." "So Zhang got the book a long time ago?" said Harry. "I think so. Hermione said after suddenly remembering something. I remember a long time ago, he mentioned it once in the library, and he recently read all 7 years of textbooks. No wonder he can perfectly make the potion of living hell today. Ron sighed. And he also made improvements to the potion of living hell. Hermione said, a little depressed. Today Hermione made the potion according to the book, but the result was not considered a success, and Zhang Su, who was an academic competitor, left her behind by a large margin. At this time, Ginny suddenly said, you guys say, could the notes here be written by Zhang? Harry and the others froze for a moment, then flipped through the old textbook again and studied the notes on the book. The second person who recorded in the book is very likely to be him. Harry looked at the old textbook and said, even if it's not him, then he should have something to do with this book. Thinking of this, Harry picked up the old textbook and closed it, then said to his friends, why don't we ask Zhang Yi? That's when Harry noticed 2 lines written on the bottom of the back cover. The book belongs to the half-blood prince. Degree past he to the boss. Harry, who was speechless, was even more convinced that this book had something to do with Zhang Su. Then let's ask Zhang now. Ron said positively. I think we better go tomorrow, said Hermione. Why? Harry asked strangely. Because when I left the auditorium after dinner just now, I heard Parvati and her sister discussing that the 2 of them would go to Zhang's dormitory together tonight to find something to do with Zhang. Hermione shrugged and said. The desire to survive overwhelmed the desire to gossip, and Harry and the others did not plan to explore the gossip news. Harry took out the Marauders map and put it on the table, and said, then let's see if Zhang is free now. Harry activated the Marauders map, and began the voyeuristic operation above board. Hey, why is she also in Zhang's dormitory? Ron said in surprise, looking at the names of several people in Zhang Su's room on the Marauders map. Separation line back to 8 o'clock in the evening. The 2 sisters, Parvati Patil and Padma Patil, arrived at the door of Zhang Su's dormitory on time. The 2 looked at each other, summoned up their courage and knocked on the door of the dormitory. An NBSP, please come in. Just as Padma knocked on the door 3 times, Zhang Su's voice came from behind the door letting them in. Sister Patil pushed open the door and walked into the living room of Zhang Su's dormitory. Good evening, Zhang. Just as Padma greeted Zhang Su, her voice stopped. She didn't expect that there was another person here in the living room. As soon as Parvati entered the door, she saw another person sitting in the living room, and hurriedly said hello, good evening, Professor McGonagall. Last night when Zhang Su saw that Padma had something to say to him but hesitated to speak, he kept his eyes open. After potions class was over this afternoon, the 2 sisters Patil came to him, and he felt that the 2 of them must have something important to discuss or help with him. In addition to the fact that their family members wanted to take them away from Hogwarts, which had been circulated among the students before, Zhang Su believed that there was a high chance that their finding him had something to do with this time. So Zhang Su called Professor McGonagall after dinner. If Professor McGonagall took over some things, it would be more reassuring for the Patil sisters. After sitting down on the sofa in the living room, the Patil sisters found a pot of Assam black tea and several kinds of snacks from India on the coffee table in front of them. Zhang Su waved his magic wand, the teapot turned into a fountain of black tea, a stream of Assam black tea sprayed out from the spout, split into 2 strands in the air, and plunged into the teacup in front of the 2 sisters inside. What do you want from me? Zhang Su asked straight to the point. The 2 sisters glanced at each other, and then the elder sister, Parvati, held a teacup and said, we do have something to ask for your advice. I think you've heard about our family wanting to drop us out of Hogwarts and bring us back to India, Parvati said, fiddling with her half-filled teacup nervously. I heard it's because your family thinks Hogwarts is no longer safe. Zhang Su asked suspiciously. If this is the reason, I can write to your family and tell them that Hogwarts is absolutely safe, Professor McGonagall said to the 2 sisters. Although Professor McGonagall was able to establish evidence to guarantee the safety of Hogwarts, the 2 Patil sisters shook their heads at the same time. Parvati put the teacup back on the tea table, and said, thank you very much, Professor McGonagall. Padma continued, the security issue is just an excuse. The reality is Padma hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath, as if she had made up her mind, and said, actually, the family wants us to go back and marry other families, but we don't want to live like that. Padma's words surprised Zhang Su and Professor McGonagall. The script was a bit out of line for the 2 of them. Zhang Su couldn't calm down anymore. What the hell is going to start a divorce at this time? But in this day and age, opposition to arranged marriages is a must. Orthodox feminism talks about women holding up half the sky, supports freedom of love, and opposes arranged marriages instead of portraying women as waste snacks who only know how to get something for nothing and blindly worship money like those pastoral feminists. Then the orthodox feminist Professor McGonagall spoke. She said to the two sisters, "If you don't like the marriage appointed by your family, I can find a way to prevent your family from taking you back to India. If your family has to let you leave Hogwarts for safety reasons, I can contact Mrs. Maxime with Mr. Zhang and let you study in Buxbuttons." After speaking, Professor McGonagall turned to look at Zhang Su, who was drinking tea. Zhang Su thought for a while and said, "If this matter still haunts you after you graduate, I can let you come to our country. Whether it is to study or find a job, I can provide you with a chance. I don't think your family can tie you back on our country's soil." After receiving the guarantee from Professor McGonagall and Zhang Su, the two sisters breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, they were very soft-spoken at home, and they did not resist the arrangement of the family at all. Now, as long as Professor McGonagall and Zhang Su help delay the time, the Paddle sisters can find a way to delay this matter by themselves. Parvati said gratefully, "Thank you, Professor McGonagall, Zhang." After reassuring the two sisters, Professor McGonagall got up and left. She wanted to go back and write to Sister Paddle's home to drag this matter down first. After Professor McGonagall left, Padma said to Zhang Su, "Thank you so much, Zhang. We even planned to be your girlfriend together, so as to reject the marriage arranged at home." Zhang Su, Chapter 361, An existence worse than Voldemort. Zhang Su is very fortunate to have found Professor McGonagall today. If Professor McGonagall hadn't stepped forward to solve this matter, who knows what Zhang's innocence would be like. Less than 10 minutes after Sister Paddle left, there was another knock on the door of Zhang Su's dormitory. This time it was Harry Potter and his group of 4. After seeing Harry take out the old textbook, Zhang Su knew what they were looking for. "Well, do you have any questions about potions?" Zhang Su asked knowingly. Harry opened the textbook, put the textbook on the coffee table, pointed to the note on the margin and asked, "Zhang, did you write some of the notes here?" Zhang Su glanced at the line that Harry pointed to. "Using a pressure cooker to heat can reduce the heating time by about 75, then nodded and said, "That's right, I wrote some of it." "It's you?" Harry exclaimed in surprise. "It's me, what's the matter?" Zhang Su asked curiously. "Thank you," Harry said to Zhang Su, "without your help, I would not have received Professor Slughorn's reward today." "I didn't help you with a potion of living hell today," Zhang Su waved his hand and said, "I think the other person who took notes in the book will help you even more." "Do you know who the other guy is?" Ron asked expectantly. "I don't know." Zhang Su shook his head and said, "After I got Professor Snape's permission to look through the old textbooks in the classroom, I found this advanced potion making by accident. After I found the note on it, I also asked Professor Snape whose book it used to be." When Harry heard Snape's name, the corner of Harry's mouth couldn't help but twitch. Zhang Su pretended he didn't see it, and continued, "After reading this textbook, Professor Snape said that he didn't know which student's textbook it was from before. He only knew from the notes on the book that this student should be a genius in potions." Back then Zhang Su asked Snape this question with the idea of making trouble, but was confused by Snape's boasting. "From this point of view, you are also a genius in potions," Ron said, looking at Zhang Su enviously. "I'm not a genius," Zhang Su said. "In terms of potions, I just got the honor of family inheritance." At this moment, the dormitory was pushed away, and someone walked into the dormitory. "But you are also very strong in other aspects," Ron continued to say enviously. "You have always been very good at transfiguration and charms." "That's because you didn't see how much he sweated in a place where no one was around," Zhang Chu, who had just walked into the dormitory, said after listening to Ron's words. Since he was in the 1st grade, he has gone to the response room to practice spells almost every night, and then runs to the kitchen to get food every night after he is exhausted. It took me a lot of effort to track him down and figure out why he was leaving the common room every night and whether he was going on a date with a girl. These are old things, and Zhang Su said to Zhang Chu, who had just walked in. I saw Zhang Chu holding a thermos and putting it beside Zhang Su, and then said, "This is your medicine for tonight, remember to drink it on time." Harry, it was the first time I heard this in so many years, and I was a little surprised for a while. After all, in the 1st grade, Harry's trio and Zhang Su were not very familiar with each other. When Harry and the others went to brush the copy of Quirrell, they never thought of calling Zhang Su. "Zhang, how did you become so strong now?" Ron asked. "Just don't be afraid of death." Zhang Su said, "Actually, my strength is not as exaggerated as you imagined, but I am not afraid of death in battle. When you are not afraid of death, people will become calm, so you can use your brain to fight, so that you can use your best strength in the battle." At this moment, a paper crane flying a message flew in from the window of the living room and landed in front of Zhang Su. After opening it, Zhang Su looked at it, and then wrote back. After answering the letter, Zhang Su picked up the medicine that Zhang Chu brought just now and drank it in a few gulps. Although Harry and the others still had a lot of questions they wanted to ask Zhang Su, they only remembered that Zhang Su was still half a patient after seeing Zhang Su drinking the medicine that Zhang Chu brought just now, so they greeted and left, and Zhang Su asked them to pack and take away all the Indian snacks that they had just prepared for the twin sisters. The twin sisters were so preoccupied just now that they were not in the mood to eat desserts at all, but Zhang Su and Professor McGonagall kept their distance from overly sweet Indian desserts, so it was easier for Harry and the others who came later. "I'm sorry to trouble you," Zhang Su said to Zhang Chu. The potion Zhang Su drank just now was made by Zhang Chu. The prescription and medicinal materials were all brought from China. Zhang Su's family troubled Zhang Chu to urge Zhang Su to drink the medicine on time every day. As the saying goes, the taste of good medicine is better than the water of Laotian white snake grass, but sometimes Zhang Su is like a child who would rather recover slowly than drink medicine, so some things can only be left to Zhang Chu. "How is your health now?" Zhang Chu asked worriedly. "Basically nothing serious," Zhang Su said, "except for some insomnia and heart palpitations. There are basically no other problems." "Then don't be tired," Zhang Chu said to Zhang Su. Zhang Su nodded in agreement, and Zhang Chu left after sitting for a while. After Zhang Chu left, Zhang Su walked into the study, sat at the desk, picked up a shiny 38 sets of physics next to him, and started to study the questions. There is not much time left for Zhang Su now. 10 months later, Zhang Su will face a college entrance examination that is more terrifying than Voldemort. In the face of Voldemort, he can still run, but in front of the college entrance examination, Zhang Su has no way to escape. For so many years, Zhang Su has been preparing for the college entrance examination by relying on self-study and earning money, but the current situation seems to be not optimistic. The magic class is not a big problem, but the culture class is facing a lot of problems. During the summer vacation, he brushed aside this year the college entrance examination questions, but he found that if he didn't pay close attention, he might overturn next year. Zhang Su resigned from his position as an acting professor this year, so why didn't he take the opportunity to get rid of his burdens, pack lightly, and go all out to prepare for the college entrance examination? Zhang Su has already prepared to give up his Hogwarts courses this year in order to save his handsomeness. Anyway, the blame for the drop in grades can be blamed on Voldemort. In the foreseeable next 10 months, Zhang Su will be the hardest protagonist among all Harry Potter fans. After 10 o'clock in the evening, Zhang Su stretched himself after finishing a set of questions, left the study and walked to the bedroom. When he came to the balcony of the bedroom, there was already someone waiting for him. Chapter 362 Post-War Psychological Syndrome? Inside and outside of Hogwarts Castle, there are powerful, bloated, and many loopholes defensive magic. For example, you can't sneak into Hogwarts by parading, riding a broomstick, and climbing over walls, but you can enter Hogwarts Castle by taking secret paths and entering the Forbidden Forest. And these defensive magics can prevent people riding broomsticks, but other magical animals such as Dementors, as well as flying cars, can't prevent them at all. Back then, the dragon that Charlie and the others came to transport Hagrid was just a side effect of Louding behind the scenes. In Hogwarts Castle, all the windows on the first floor are enchanted. People can only enter the castle through the door. If you want to climb the window to enter, you can only wait to be thrown out by the magic. The same goes for the windows and balconies on the castle floor. You can jump out, but you can't fly in from the outside. Unless you become an owl. There is an exception, that is, Dumbledore can enter the castle by drilling balconies and climbing windows at the beginning. After Zhang Su learned about this, he complained in his heart for a long time. What Zhang Su didn't expect was that one day Dumbledore would come to the balcony of his dormitory to look for him. Zhang Su came to the balcony and saw that Dumbledore was already sitting on the wicker chair on the balcony, where he was eating the dessert that Zhang Su had prepared on the coffee table in a leisurely way. After sitting in his seat, Dumbledore said to Zhang Su straight to the point, "Did you find anything different about Harry, Ron, and Hermione today, Zhang?" Zhang Su thought for a while, and couldn't think of anything wrong with Harry's trio today. After carefully recalling the performance of the three of them just now, Zhang Su suddenly discovered something different. Hermione doesn't seem to object to the jinxes and spells in Harry's research book. Zhang Su said after thinking, it doesn't fit Hermione's character. She has always been skeptical about such unknown knowledge, even against it. Thinking along this point, Zhang Su also discovered some things that had been overlooked just now. When the trio and Ginny left just now, Ron and Harry mentioned to find a place to try the other spells recorded in the book. This means that they must have tried some of the above spells before they came to find themselves. Those spells are not good spells when they look at the effect, and one of the characteristics of black magic is that it can gradually affect the user thinking. As the saying goes, don't do evil because it is small. Even the smallest evil is evil. If you don't discipline yourself when you steal needles when you are young, you will be chopped off by an old man with a sickle and an axe for stealing bananas on the roadside when you grow up. And the kind of small-scale black magic invented by Snape is the most capable of subtly influencing the mind of wizards without being alert. The temptation of extraordinary power to people is like the food additives that Zhang Su gave to the Dementors. It is easy to make people addicted to it. It seems that Dumbledore, who has been paying attention to Harry and the others, has discovered this, but he can't just hang Snape and Zhang Su up for a beat and then take back Harry's old textbook, so he can only ask Zhang Su to discuss how to avoid it. Harry and the others went astray. After all, practice over the past few years has proved that Zhang Su's methods and effects are a little bit better than Loudang's in dealing with brats like Harry. When Dumbledore saw Zhang Su's thoughtful look, he knew that something was wrong. After eating the dessert in his hand, Loudang said to Zhang Su, "During the summer vacation, Molly mentioned to me that Ron behaved a little strangely during the summer vacation, often sitting alone on the sidelines. I don't know what to think. At the same time, he also becomes irritable and sometimes has nightmares at night. It may be that what happened on the train left him with psychological trauma," Zhang Su said. After a fierce battle, people's minds were confused due to various reasons during the battle. Zhang Su had heard his father mention such things. For example, sometimes some fighters perform poorly in battle, and even cause their comrades to be injured or sacrificed, which makes it difficult for fighters to get out of negative emotions such as self-blame. At this time, instructors and political commissars are needed to play. In the train robbery at the end of last semester, Harry's trio were basically doing soy sauce, but many other students performed well. For example, Percy, Fred and George took down a Death Eater together, and even Draco Malfoy held a certain Death Eater from hurting other students in this way. Ron's psychological gap is big enough, and some problems will inevitably arise when his psychology is ups and downs. And judging from everyone's performance today, Harry's trio had more or less a little bit of post-war psychological syndrome, which led to a difference in their handling of unfamiliar black magic from before. In terms of psychological counseling, Zhang Su really doesn't have much knowledge reserve. He can only increase the psychological shadow area for others, and now he can only catch blind when encountering such a thing. Zhang Su guessed that Dumbledore came to him because he wanted to find a way in this regard, but he had no choice but to ask in advance, "Is there anything you can do, Professor? What I'm worried about is that they will be affected by black magic." Dumbledore said, "I guess they may want to seek power, so that I can help when this happens again." After working in the school for so long, Dumbledore still has a way of grasping the psychology of students. Zhang Su also nodded after listening. Boys and girls who yearn for power are naturally easier to deal with than boys and girls who are eager. Then we need to increase their strength, Zhang Su said, but their strength has grown very fast, and if it continues to grow faster, it will be difficult to control, allowing black magic to take advantage of it. This is what Dumbledore was worried about. In the wizarding world, there were not many ways to improve one's strength in a short period of time, but basically they all had something to do with black magic. I think, at this time, we need to set a correct example for them to learn from, so as to prevent them from going astray. Dumbledore said the purpose of coming to Zhang Su tonight. Zhang Su, who had figured out what Loudang was thinking, was slandered in his heart. Is it so easy to learn as a successor to communism? So Zhang Su said to Loudang, aren't you the best role model for them? Recognized as the greatest wizard of our time, winner of the Order of Merlin First Class, chief wizard of the Wizengamot, and former president of the International Federation of Magicians. Harry and the others just need an elder like you to teach them life experience. Lao Deng, who wanted to pull Zhang Su into the water, did not expect to be turned by Zhang Su. Zhang Su was right. If he wanted to guide Harry and the others on the right path, he was indeed the best role model. But I don't have that much time to teach them. Dumbledore said to Zhang Su, you know, in the next time, I will have very little world in Hogwarts. Zhang Su also said in his heart that he didn't have so much time to train them. Now there are more than 30 kilograms of college entrance examination review materials waiting to be brushed by himself. He couldn't give Lao Deng a chance to blame himself, so Zhang Su immediately thought of a way. Not long after, Zhang Su slapped his head and thought of a theoretically good solution by referring to the plot. Chapter 363. After the film appeared, it was often used as an efficient publicity tool. Whether it is a propaganda war in wartime or a soft power war in peacetime, it is inseparable from the presence of movies. In the wizarding world, there is one thing whose function is very similar to that of the movie, and that is the pensieve. Zhang Su's suggestion to Lao Deng is to let him choose the glorious moments of educational significance in his life, put them in the pensieve and play them for the Harry Trio to watch, and let the Harry Trio carry out the 3 positive views, promote righteousness, and establish new wins study. Zhang Su's suggestion bluffed Dumbledore, and Lao Deng said that he had to think carefully before speaking. For a dark wizard, the inner desire is the source of power. But for Horse Monkey, My Little Pony, and the White Wizard, love is the most powerful force in the world. Now the hearts of the Harry Potter trio are full of desire for power, and many dark wizards have embarked on the road of indulging in black magic from here, so Lao Deng has to bring them back to friendship his magic way up. At this moment, Dumbledore, who had been in deep thought, suddenly looked at Zhang Su, whose sharp eyes surprised Zhang Su. Just when Zhang Su was thinking about whether to flee Hogwarts to protect his virginity, Dumbledore asked him, "What do you think of Severus' little magic?" Zhang Su secretly heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that Lao Deng was only worried that he would fall into the quagmire of black magic, so he asked his own views on black magic, instead of suddenly having some immature thoughts about himself. It's not surprising that Dumbledore knew about the owner of the old textbook. After all, Snape had been teaching at Hogwarts for more than 10 years. It would be a ghost if old Deng couldn't recognize Snape's handwriting. Zhang Su thought Lao Deng didn't care about this matter. When Zhang Su chatted with Voldemort's snake on the train that day, many people present saw it. The skill of Parseltongue is a sign of black wizards in the West, but in the East it is just a small language that cannot be taken in the college entrance examination and is given priority when applying for snake farms. For Dumbledore, it doesn't matter whether Zhang Su's ally is a dark wizard or not, it's just that he has been tense for the past 2 months, so he needs to get an affirmative reply to some of Zhang Su's performances to determine whether Zhang Su knows his situation. So Zhang Su said in an indifferent tone, "Whether it is a black cat or a white cat, the cat that can catch mice is a good cat." Lao Deng was a little speechless to Zhang Su's answer that only looked at the result and not the process. After a while, Dumbledore left, and Zhang Su continued to bask in the moon on the balcony alone. Next, the busy life of the 6th grade began. During dinner, Lisa Dupin, who was sitting across from Zhang Su, kept complaining. The professors seemed to have colluded and collectively asked them to use the silent spell. After staying in the faculty lounge for several years, Zhang, who knew a lot of inside information, said to her, "Your guess is right, Lisa. The professors reached an agreement on this issue many years ago, and at the same time, the 6 silent spells are taught to students in grades." The surrounding students wailed after hearing this. While struggling with the lamb chops on the plate, Kevin Entwistle said to Zhang Su, "You have mastered the silent spell, teach us when you have time." And around Tony Goldstein, Mandy Blow and others also nodded in agreement, and even Luna, who was sitting next to Zhang Su, also nodded to join in the fun. Zhang Su looked at the students around him, and thought that it would not be too much trouble to teach them some tricks, so he nodded and said to them, "Okay, after dinner, let's go to the table in front of the fireplace in the common room, concentrate there, and then I will tell you some tips. Can I go too?" Luna, who was sitting next to Zhang Su, tugged on Zhang Su's sleeve and said, "You can come if you want. Anyway, you will have to learn the silent spell next year. It's good to spend some time practicing in advance." When Zhang Su explained the secret of the silent spell to Padma Patil that day, there were not many students around him, and he didn't explain it very carefully that day. It's just that after Zhang Su returned to the common room after eating, He saw a group of classmates waiting for him in front of the fireplace. Among these students were not only the 6th grade students, but also some students from other grades who watched the scene. This kind of gathering has been held countless times in the past few years. Zhang Su came to the table and sat down, and began to explain some tricks of silent spells to everyone. Actually, there are not many tips for silent spells. Zhang Su said straight to the point. The key to silent spellcasting lies in one's proficiency in spells, and improving this requires concentration and willpower. The only thing that can be considered a trick of silent casting is that you can use the most proficient spells for practice, because you are the easiest to feel the subtle changes of the spells you are familiar with. Once you master the first silent casting spell, the silent casting of other spells is easy. Next, Zhang Su explained in detail how to feel the flow of magic power when practicing magic, how to gradually move from the state of chanting mantras to the state of not moving his mouth through self-hypnosis step by step, and then answered many questions from the students. In Zhang Su's view, silent spells are like learning to ride a bicycle or swim. Once you succeed once, you can only rely on hard work to master it in the future. After about an hour, the students around Zhang Su dispersed and began to practice by themselves. When the students around Zhang Su dispersed, Zhang Chu appeared with a thermos cup that made Zhang Su tremble a little. Zhang Chu put the thermos in front of Zhang Su, and asked, "Are you still participating in the Quidditch team this year?" Zhang Su smiled and said, "I won't participate. This year I will take on a new role on the Quidditch pitch." Zhang Chu stared at Zhang Su for a long time, and asked, "Are you going to be a commentator?" "It's not surprising that I become a commentator," Zhang Su said. "Of course it's strange." Zhang Chu said, "How could you think of being a commentator?" "I went when I thought about it. I already applied to Professor McGonagall at noon, and she has already approved it." After Zhang Su finished speaking, he opened the thermos cup on the table and swallowed the potion with a smell that could make people cry. Period. "By the way, are you free this weekend?" Zhang Su asked after drinking the medicine. "What's the matter?" Zhang Chu asked back. "The Ministry of Magic will award me a medal this weekend, and there will be a party at that time, and you can bring your partner to attend." Zhang Su said, "I want you to make up the number." "No, go away." Chapter 364 Resurrection Stone. After Zhang Su left the common room, he walked towards the dormitory area. Walk to the door of the dormitory, read the password to open the door, then go straight through the living room and bedroom to the balcony, sit on the chair and put snacks and tea on the side coffee table. Zhang Su just sat on a chair with snacks and tea and memorized formulas with a textbook. As a result, with his back on his back, he didn't know when he leaned on the chair and fell asleep. After sleeping for an unknown amount of time, Zhang Su woke up when someone flicked his forehead with a finger. "Go back to sleep in your own dormitory," Scarlet said to Zhang Su. "Hey, I'm back after washing," Zhang Su said desperately after seeing Scarlet come back. "Come on, let me check to see if it's clean or not." Scarlet, who was standing in front of Zhang Su, suddenly lifted the bathrobe on her body with a shoe. Isn't it too hot to wear so much? Is it because I'm getting older and afraid of the cold?" A few minutes later, Scarlet, who took off his bathrobe and revealed pink trousers and short-sleeved pajamas, sat on his chair and read with relish the textbook that Zhang Su had just brought to memorize formulas. "Tell me what the Planck constant is. If you answer correctly, I will let you down," Scarlet said to Zhang Su, who was hanging upside down on the wall. 6.626 x 103 JS. Then with a plop, Zhang Su fell off the wall. "Do you have an appointment this weekend?" Zhang Su sat back on the chair and asked while rubbing his neck. "What year roll the Ministry of Magic will give me a medal this weekend. If I can bring a female companion, you can go with me. If you can't find someone, just ask me to make up the number." After some discussion, Scarlet didn't give an accurate answer, which made Zhang Su consider whether he should just drop by when he was going to London, and take a certain lolly who was in primary school with him. At this time, Scarlet used the flying curse to track 2 boxes to fly on the coffee table, and then pushed towards Zhang Su. "This is something I promised old Deng. You will lend me one to Potter, and you will keep the other for me first," Scarlet said. Zhang Su opened a box and found that it was the ring of the Gunter family, and in the other box was a men's pendant decorated with black gemstones. Seeing the 2 black gemstones on the ring and the pendant, which were almost copied and pasted, Zhang Su couldn't help but twitched. "That's why you agreed to lend this resurrection stone?" Zhang Su asked, observing the fake gemstone on the ring. Anyway, I don't need it right now, so I'll lend it to you first. Scarlet said, fortunately, I haven't told my family about this ring, otherwise my family wouldn't agree to revive it if they were killed. The stone was taken down. I think it's better not to put the resurrection stone back on the ring after it's used up, Zhang Su said while fiddling with the ring and the pendant. If you separate them like this, you will have two important family heirlooms in your hands in the future. Why do I want so many family heirlooms? Scarlet said with a sidelong glance at Zhang Su. Exactly, give each of your two daughters one in the future, Zhang Su said. After flying sideways from Scarlet's dormitory, Zhang Su took out the Marauder's Map 2.0 that Liaodeng had given him and looked at it, and saw something interesting. Zhang Su, who originally wanted to go back to his dormitory to continue writing questions, turned his head and walked upstairs. A few minutes later, he appeared in front of the room of requirement. When Zhang Su appeared in the room of requirement, Harry's trio were taken aback. Ron's hand shook, and a spell that had been shot at a stake flew towards the roof, almost knocking out the chandelier on the roof. Hit it down. Everyone is working hard. Zhang Su greeted them. Have you finished your homework? It's fine when Hermione is done, said Ron. Shut up, Hermione snapped at Ron. Zhang Su looked at the response room. The layout here is the same as when a group of people practiced together in the past. Rows of human-shaped targets made of wood are lined up by the wall left traces. It seems that you have practiced the spells in that old textbook a lot. Zhang Su looked at Harry and the three of them with interest and said, I thought you would stop them, Hermione. The expression on Hermione's face became weird, and after a while, she said, I can't stop the two of them. And you want to learn too, don't you? Zhang Su asked suddenly. Hermione lowered her head, looked at the wand in her hand, and after a while, she said in a low voice, I know these spells may be dangerous, but I don't want to be useless in case of danger. Then Zhang Su looked at Ron again, and found that his performance was exactly the same as Hermione's. Zhang Su sighed in his heart. It seems that his guess was correct. The two children were suppressed by Voldemort for the first time during the train robbery, and then Harry and himself were tortured in front of their eyes. The psychology of the two of them had a little deviation. But Zhang Su didn't say anything more at this time. It was Liaodeng's job to correct their psychology. Zhang Su reminded them, speaking of the spells in the old textbook, some are very dangerous, and some can only be used as pranks. So you have to check carefully whether the spells you want to learn have any side effects. I think you have discovered that many of the little spells in that old textbook belong to the category of black magic. And practicing black magic is risky, I think you all understand. After Zhang Su finished speaking, he warned Harry and the others not to use students for experiments at will, and then ran away when Harry and the three of them looked at each other. Due to various reasons, when it comes to serious matters, the Harry trio always lacks momentum in front of Zhang Su, and they often act like they are being taught humbly, so it is easy to be fooled by Zhang Su. The truth of the set was knocked out. And when Zhang Su didn't want to get entangled with them, he also used the principle to knock them unconscious first, and then waited for an opportunity to run away. As for the pendant inlaid with the resurrection stone, Zhang Su thought that it should not be handed over to Harry Potter directly, as it would be no fun. So someone Zhang decided to find something for Harry to do. After all, when the hero gets some top quality equipment from heaven and earth, he has to go through some tests. So Zhang Su took the pendant and walked to the principal's office, and had to discuss with Liaodeng when he was still at school, what kind of maze should be set up for Harry to break through. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 365, Burning Magi Azharwang. The time soon came to the first weekend after school started. When Zhang Su came to the cafeteria, many students greeted him one after another, and at the same time said jokes like "We will call you Your Excellency in the future." The Ministry of Magic did not deliberately conceal the award of the Order of Merlin this time, and Zhang Su was not the only one who was awarded the Order of Merlin this time. There is no need to deliberately inquire. Zhang Su knew from the discussion of the surrounding students a few days ago who was awarded the honor at the same time as him this time. Not to mention that Zhang Su's aunt also revealed to him some inside information behind the list. After Zhang Su got the list of honors, combined with the inside information behind it, he had to admire the current Minister of Magic Scrimgeour. This lion-like minister not only has a vigorous style, but also has a delicate side. Like the usual weekend breakfast, the students didn't have the pressure to wait for the class, and they chatted happily while trying to fill their stomachs as much as possible before the owl rain came. Today is the day for the Quidditch team of the Eagle Academy to recruit new players. Many students who are interested in joining the team have asked the old players about recruiting new players. At the same time, several first-year freshmen came to recommend themselves to Zhang Chu. They thought that they had enough level to reach the standard of official players in the first grade, like Harry Potter did back then. The tireless Zhang Chu could only send them to the flying club by the lake to fly the most difficult obstacle course around the lake, and then go to the Quidditch pitch to find her with the results. After Zhang Chu dismissed those freshmen, it entered the time of owl rain. After going through some confusion, Zhang Su got the daily prophet that he ordered. Today's headline shocked the students who read the newspaper in an instant, while the students who did not subscribe to the newspaper asked the students who were stunned by the news in the newspaper for news. Looking at the newspaper in Zhang Su's hand, Zhang Chu asked in surprise, "Is this fake news? I think this should be true." Zhang Su looked at the newspaper and replied, "Such things cannot be faked." Then Zhang Chu, like other students who read the news in the newspaper, looked at Malfoy, who was sitting at the dining table in the snake court with sympathetic eyes. The headlines in today's newspapers were the shock of the attack and burning of Malfoy Manor. According to news reports, late last night, Arthur Weasley, director of the Office of Detection and Confiscation of Counterfeit Defensive Spells and Protective Equipment, led a team to conduct a surprise inspection of Malfoy Manor. His team is understood to have acted after receiving tip-offs from an informant. But when Arthur Weasley arrived at Malfoy Manor with his men, he found that the main buildings in the manor were burning, and there were obvious signs of fighting left around the manor garden. Arthur Weasley immediately reported the situation to the Ministry of Magic. The Minister of Magic, Scrimgeour, and the Director of the Auror Office, Percy Weasley, immediately led a team to the scene to carry out emergency response work. As of press time, the Malfoy couple, the owners of Malfoy Manor, are still missing. The report was also accompanied by an aerial photo of Malfoy's house emitting green smoke, which was probably taken by the photographer from the sky on a broomstick. Zhang Su looked towards Malfoy. The pony had his back to Zhang Su, so Zhang Su couldn't see his expression, but from the newspaper in his hand, judging from his trembling situation, it is obvious that his heart is not peaceful. Regarding this, Zhang Su could only he. "Do you know who did it?" Zhang Chu asked Zhang Su on the side. Zhang Su shook his head and smiled without saying a word. He was not involved in this matter. This level of action is not something that a small shrimp like him can participate in. It can be said that Zhang Su is the only person in Hogwarts who knows the details of this matter. Even Dumbledore probably only knows about it, and Snape is probably still in a daze. The work in March this year took a week to call it a day, and some people almost wrote persuasion forms to the elders. However, not long after the top combat team was on vacation, the Brockdale Bridge collapsed, causing casualties of several international students. In China, after learning that the British government could not catch the murderer, they called Zhang Su, who was recuperating in the mountains overnight, to ask for opinions and suggestions, and organized several tour groups to travel to the UK the next day. "Can you get me some souvenirs?" called Death Eaters. And it wasn't just the domestic ones who planned this. As far as Zhang Su knew, teams from France and Russia also went to the UK. This is a very serious diplomatic issue, but the British government has no way to manage it. Just like the Quidditch World Cup, the activities of foreign wizards in the UK are under the control of the Ministry of Magic. That's why British Prime Minister Jim Harker is so angry with Fudge and Scrimgeour. Jim Harker didn't stop the government army wizard in charge of security work in the office from subduing the two ministers of the Ministry of Magic and the Auror who came to be the bodyguard in the first place, somewhat because he felt very angry after seeing this scene. Before the start of school, Zhang Su learned that the tour groups of the three countries had jointly formed a group, and some progress had been made in the investigation of local specialties. No matter how detailed the information is, because Zhang Su's official identity level is not high enough, Zhang Su still knows about the confidentiality discipline, so he can only reason about the progress of the matter based on some information he already knows. Now it seems that they were collecting intelligence and waiting for the opponent to lose their vigilance a while ago, and then aggressively attacked one of the most important gathering points of the Death Eaters. And Voldemort hides a lot of nails in the Ministry of Magic, so every time the Ministry of Magic takes action, Voldemort can make corresponding arrangements in advance. But facing the attack from outside the Ministry of Magic this time, Zhang Su guessed that Voldemort was blind. As for the missing Lao Ma and his wife, whose whereabouts are unknown, Zhang Su has nothing to worry about. It is unreasonable to say that the family of hundreds of years has no life-saving things. Maybe the two of them are hiding somewhere now. As for classmate Xiaoma, Zhang Su didn't think he knew much. Now Zhang Su can only waiting for the situation report from the embassy and the information from Rita Skeeter. What happened yesterday can be said to be a landmark event in recent years. If it was locked in the past few years, Zhang Su would rack his brains to think about its impact. And now 3 after breakfast, Zhang Su lay on the lawn by the lake basking in the sun like a salted fish. Anyway, there is someone on top who is responsible for this matter, so he is happy to relax and wait for the party tonight. Chapter 366, and number 039, S-Pony. Degree 333. Near noon, a sudden heavy rain stormed Hogwarts accompanied by lightning and thunder. Like the other students playing by the lake, Zhang Su randomly found something around him and turned it into an umbrella, then ran towards the castle holding the umbrella. At this time, it was time to prepare for lunch, so a group of students simply went to the cafeteria and waited to prepare lunch. While eating lunch, Zhang Su found that Xiaoma did not appear in the cafeteria. After a quick lunch, Zhang Su left the cafeteria, cast a disillusionment spell on himself in the empty corridor, and walked towards Myrtle's washroom. While in the corridor, Zhang Su had already looked at the Marauders map when there was no one there, and found that Xiaoma was alone in the girls' bathroom. Zhang Su, who leaned his ear against a bathroom door, vaguely heard a boy's voice crying inside. After listening carefully, the crying person inside was definitely Malfoy. At this moment, Zhang Su's heart suddenly moved, and he immediately raised his wand and pointed to his side where speed reveal. Zhang Su didn't expect that there would be someone next to him using the illusion spell to eavesdrop on the movement in the girls' bathroom, like him. If he didn't feel the breeze brought by the other party walking, Zhang Su really couldn't find the other party. And he didn't expect that the other party used the silent manifestation spell on the other party like himself. When the two people in front of the door saw each other clearly, the scene fell into extreme embarrassment. Zhang Su, after being invisible, what should I do if the principal finds me outside the girls' bathroom? Wait online, urgently. After Zhang Su and Lao Deng stared at each other for a while, they unanimously chose to cast the illusion curse on themselves again to become invisible. As for classmate Xiaoma in the bathroom, he didn't know that he was being watched secretly. With Lao Deng around, sneaking into the bathroom without a sound was a piece of cake. The current situation in the bathroom is very suitable for reading comprehension test questions in Chinese class test papers. The rain was blown into the bathroom through the window by the storm, and fell on Malfoy, who was curled up on the ground. Malfoy's sobs seemed so small under the accompaniment of thunder. According to the problem-solving idea of reading comprehension, this scene describes Malfoy's inner weakness and helplessness. And the actual situation is the same now, and now Malfoy is only one step away from crying and fainting in the bathroom. Although Zhang Su was not sure whether Malfoy had received Voldemort's mission to assassinate Dumbledore, or even his own mission, after all, Lucius Malfoy hadn't been captured this time, and Voldemort had no reason to let the pony take action. But judging from his current situation of being overwhelmed by pressure, Voldemort's mission is, similar to the one in the plot. When you think about it, it's not surprising that he was overwhelmed by such a series of major events, such as the basically impossible task of assassinating Dumbledore, followed by a burning home and missing parents. And what surprised Zhang Su the most was why Malfoy would stay at Hogwarts at this time. In the past few years at Hogwarts, Zhang Su knew that when students had accidents at home or relatives passed away, the school would give students vacations to go home to deal with family affairs. And now that Malfoy didn't go home to have a look, and the pony's identity was very special, and it was a tacit secret that his father was one of the Death Eaters, so his actions could not help but arouse suspicion. Perhaps Lao Deng was puzzled by this point, so he came to follow Xiaoma. It's just that the harvest of this follow-up operation is almost zero, and student Xiaoma didn't do much other than almost crying and fainting. Resisting the idea of taking the opportunity to send legilimency to Xiaoma, Zhang Su left the bathroom. If Pony has passed out from crying, then there is nothing wrong with using legilimency on him. If you use it on him when he is still a little sane, he might be discovered. After leaving Myrtle's territory, Zhang Su went back to his dormitory to freshen up and prepare for the honor ceremony held at the Ministry of Magic tonight. As a man, Zhang Su's dressing up is the same thing. After washing his head and face, combing his hair, and changing into decent clothes, he is basically done. Today Zhang Su is wearing the same blue robe that he wore at the Christmas dinner of the Triwizard Tournament 2 years ago. Looking at the time, it was still a long time before arriving at the principal's office, so Zhang Su began to take care of the flowers and plants in the dormitory. After Professor Bubaji came back, Zhang Su immediately moved all the flowers and plants in the Muggle Studies office back to the dormitory, except for a few pots on the balcony where Professor Sprout failed to cultivate and could only bring them to the dormitory. Except for the ornamental peas, other non-aggressive plants are arranged in the living room. When there was still a quarter of an hour before the meeting time, someone directly pushed open the door of Zhang Su's dormitory, and looked at Zhang Su, who was watering the flowers and plants like a retired veteran cadre. After seeing the person coming, Zhang Su realized that it was almost time to set off. "Are you going to fly away by yourself?" Scarlet said speechlessly to Zhang Su, who was holding a small shovel to loosen the soil from the marigolds on the windowsill. I forgot to set the alarm clock. Let's go now," Zhang Su said to Scarlet somewhat embarrassedly. According to the agreed plan, Zhang Su should find her in her dormitory 15 minutes before, and then go to Lao Dang's office together. Zhang Su put the shovel in his hand to the side of the marigold pot, drained the oil from his hands, and left with Scarlet. After 2 or 3 days of Zhang Su's hard work, Scarlet finally declined the invitation to attend the Merlin Medal Awards Gala together as his partner. Only that day did Zhang Su know that she had also received an invitation letter, so she was going to attend the awards ceremony as a family representative. And according to information obtained from other channels, Scrimgeour added a deeper meaning to this awards show. So Scarlet must first consider this matter from the standpoint of the family. According to Zhang Su's analysis, Scrimgeour's biggest problem is to hold this awards show as a party for all parties to take sides at that time. Those who support him will stand aside, and those who support Voldemort will be sent out of the country first, and finally everyone will see the real chapter under their hands. Zhang Su knew that Scarlet's family had been planning to return to England for the past few years, so he let her go. As for a partner or something, if you don't have one, you don't have one. Anyway, don't force it. If it weren't for the restrictions imposed by the Ministry of Magic, Zhang would really like to imitate the behavior of the 1999 Nobel Prize winner in medicine, Gut Lober, who brought 49 people to the Nobel Prize Gala at once. Although the two are not partners, they are also an all-round strategic partnership at the award show, so sometimes they have to make some moves in step to show others. This is the case with a social evening party, where you need to express your position between words and manners. Sometimes under the communication of the middleman, the representatives of the two families clink glasses and drink wine, which means that the two families give the middleman face and start to ease the relationship. Sometimes a few words of ridicule by a person to others means that he tells everyone that the war between them is preparing to start, and everyone quickly chooses a position. Sometimes people from two factions stand together and talk and laugh happily. When talking with others, they advance and retreat together, which is to tell others that we have joined forces, and everyone who wants to make a fortune come over for a drink. And various evening parties are a platform for these people to express and hint various information to the outside world. From this, it can be foreseen that tonight's party is another place where everyone drinks and negotiates together. It's just that I don't know what kind of message Scrimgeour will release on such an occasion. As for the protagonists in online novels who feel that such a party is hypocritical and useless, it's just that their level has not reached the level of understanding the function of such a party. Chapter 367 The Hot, Literal, Awards Show. Why is this happening? I was standing on the podium an hour ago, preparing to deliver my acceptance speech. Now, he is sitting by a bonfire in an unknown forest and smoking a cigarette. In front of him are two brats who have not yet recovered. At this moment, the voice of sounded at Zhang Su's feet again. Holding the cigarette in his left hand, Zhang Su took a deep breath, then picked up the Nokia phone at his feet with his right hand, and pressed the answer button. Under the expectant gazes of the two brats on the opposite side of the bonfire, Zhang Su answered Dobby's words with a hum while listening to Dobby's voice from the phone. After a long time, Zhang Su put down his phone. Professor Scarlet has brought Ginny back to Hogwarts, Zhang Su said to Harry Potter, who was sitting across from the bonfire. Harry was relieved to hear that Ginny and Gian was fine. Zhang Su dug out 3 lumps of mud wrapped in beggar chickens from the fire, kept one for himself and distributed the other 2 to Harry Potter and Draco Malfoy on the opposite side of the campfire, and said, "Let's eat something first." We'll find a way to go back to Hogwarts when we're full. Harry and Malfoy took the clod and smashed the outer shell to start eating late tonight's dinner. Zhang Su took out 3 bottles of Fat House Happy Water from the treasure bag, frozen them with magic, and distributed them to Harry and the others, lest they choke to death in this unknown forest. 2 hours ago, in the principal's office, Dumbledore took Zhang Su, Scarlet, Harry, Ginny and Malfoy to the Ministry of Magic through the fireplace in the office. In the magnificently decorated Great Hall of the Ministry of Magic, Scrimgeour first gave a leadership speech. Scrimgeour emphasized in his speech that although the current situation is not good, it is only temporary. The Ministry of Magic has the confidence and ability to unite all forces that can be united, declare war on the reactionary forces headed by the mysterious man, and give everyone peace. Peaceful world. What followed was the awarding ceremony of the 3rd-class Medal of the Order of Merlin. Several Hogwarts graduates who performed outstandingly in the train robbery this year, such as the Weasley twins, together with some method used to make up the number Draco Malfoy together on the podium. Judging from the introduction of the Ministry of Magic, Xiaomo dragged the Death Eater alone in the carriage until the end. Literally, it seemed that he was qualified to take the opportunity of the Ministry of Magic to win the lowest medal. As for the inside story, not many people knew about it, and Zhang Su didn't bother to expose it. Then it was Percy Weasley and Harry Potter who received the Order of Merlin, and D-Class. Percy received a medal for organizing a student revolt on the train and for killing Antonin Dolokhov himself in the ensuing battle. Harry's because he insisted on his position in the past year and appealed to the Society for the return of the mysterious man despite the suppression of the Ministry of Magic in order to make up for the mistakes of the former minister and encourage him to persevere during the year. The Ministry of Magic awarded him a 2nd-class medal. From Zhang Su's point of view, this award is all very particular. The 3rd-class medal is basically to encourage people who have worked hard. And if Malfoy is stuffed in, there will be more doorways behind it. First of all, Pony is the only student in the 3rd class, and Scrimgeour's disagreement with Dumbledore on some issues about Hogwarts is well known, which is enough to write thousands of books. Word analysis is reported. Secondly, it is impossible for Scrimgeour not to know Ma's position. It's just that he made such a fuss, and he wondered if he would plant the bane of distrust of the old horse in Voldemort's heart. As for the other students whose families were Death Eaters, they didn't do very well in this incident, so they didn't have much to do tonight. The concept of the 2nd-class medal is different. Percy has obviously been cultivated by Scrimgeour, and Scrimgeour is probably willing to use him as the representative of the Ministry of Magic in this incident. As for Harry, he was given a medal as hush money. The previous suppression of him ended here. These were all blamed on Fudge, who had already stepped down, so let's not talk about this matter in the future. And Zhang Su himself was carried by everyone in a sedan chair. In the past few years, there are not a few people who have made a lot of money by relying on Zhang Su as a middleman, and everyone has seen the fate of those who offended Zhang Su. The most important thing is that in 2 years, Zhang Su will have nothing to do with the British magic world. No matter how high the honor is given to him now, are you still afraid that he will run for the Minister of Magic? So Zhang Su stood on the podium, and Scrimgeour, the Minister of Magic, presented him with the Order of Merlin 1st-class medal. Just when Zhang Su, who was wearing the medal, walked to the podium to deliver his acceptance speech, the podium exploded. Until now, Zhang Su has not figured out that this is only a semi-closed structure, and he can clearly see how the podium with nothing inside exploded. Fortunately, Zhang Su paused at the last moment, and with a lot of automatic defense items on his body, he couldn't turn it off. He was just hit by the shock wave and had the other award-winning personnel behind as the background board. Next, the entire auditorium was in chaos. From the candles floating in the air to the flowers placed around, they turned into bombs one after another, and the sound of explosions was like huaksha at midnight on the first day of the new year. After reacting, Zhang Su rushed to Harry's side, patted his head twice to wake him up, and told him to go back to Hogwarts through the portkey in Seoul first. The result was another bang. Harry's feet exploded, and his whole body was sent flying by the shock wave, and then hit Zhang Su's arms beside him, and the two rolled into a ball. At this time, Zhang Su, who realized that something was wrong, immediately grabbed Harry, who had fallen into his arms, activated the door key on his body to return to the safe house of the embassy, and ran away. What Zhang Su didn't expect was that the magic that interfered with the insole of Harry's door key also interfered with the door key on his body. Although they left the Ministry of Magic, they didn't know where they fell. What made Zhang Su even more unexpected was that when he was rolled over by Harry just now, he knocked down Malfoy, who was looking dazed not far away, and was still crushed on his feet just now. Zhang Su ran away in a hurry and didn't pay attention, but he brought Malfoy, who subconsciously wanted to push him away, along with him. Faced with such a drastic change, Zhang Su couldn't react for a while. After confirming that there was no danger around, he asked Malfoy to collect some firewood, then sat on the ground and took out a bag of Liu Sanji, and smoked one to calm his shock. Chapter 368 and number 039, not that I done in number 039, understand, the world is changing fast. The night gently surrounded Hogwarts Castle, and the figures hurrying in the dim candlelight of the corridor were like ghosts. The emergency evacuation announcement was played by loudspeaker systems distributed throughout the school, and the students who were having activities in various club activity rooms and playing by the lake ran to the common room of their own colleges. Students gathered in the common room spoke anxiously about the sudden escape soon. Word of a possible attack on the Ministry of Magic was circulating in the common rooms of the various houses because when many students came back from the lake and passed the gate of the castle, they saw Professor Scarlet, who was still wearing an evening gown, rushing towards the school infirmary holding the unconscious Ginny. The students all know that Zhang Su and the others went to the Ministry of Magic to accept the award. Many people have also heard about the fact that Harry asked Ginny to be his partner. It is because of Zhang that a certain professor will attend the party together. In the eyes of old students, it is not surprising. After such a series of analysis, it was basically deduced by the students that something big happened at the honorary party. The portrait of the fat lady was opened, and by the opening of the common room of the Lion Court, a group of 7th and 6th grade students raised their wands and pointed at the opening. The students put away their wands after Ron, who had crawled in, matched the signal. When Ron was sitting at a table by the fireplace, many students gathered around to inquire about the situation. Hermione, who was sitting at the table together, asked eagerly, "How is Ginny doing now?" Ron lowered his head, grabbed his red hair with his hands on the table, and frowned so much that he could hold a quill. After a while, under the anxious eyes of the surrounding students, Ron said slowly, "Professor Scarlet said that there was an explosion at the awards ceremony held by the Ministry of Magic today." As soon as Ron finished speaking, there were exclamations in the common room. Ron ignored them and continued, "When Zhang was about to speak, there was a sudden explosion on the podium, and then the whole party scene fell into chaos. Harry and Zhang should have escaped, and then Professor Scarlet also escaped with the injured Ginny. Ginny just got hit on the head by something, and Madame Pomfrey said she'll be fine with a night's rest." While the students were discussing and guessing, Dobby left Dumbledore's office after reporting the content of the phone call with Zhang Su just now. Only Dumbledore's office suddenly fell into silence. Sitting on the chair, Dumbledore leaned back, twisted his body, adjusted to a comfortable position, and then slowly closed his blue eyes. Dumbledore has a little habit of sneaking in during the busy work, closing his eyes, and then recalling some things many years ago in his mind for 10 minutes. It's just that his little habit has never been shown in front of other people. Although his magic power is very strong, he is also a human being, and he is still an old man over 100 years old. He will also be tired, but he is unwilling to show his exhaustion in front of other people in this period. Today's Dumbledore recalled the days when he fought Voldemort for the first time more than 10 years ago, and remembered the comrades who died in the battle against Voldemort. At the end of the 10 minutes, Dumbledore did not open his eyes to continue his work, but continued to sink into deep thought. Just now, Dumbledore discovered that the world had become its own. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. It was becoming more and more strange, although for him the scope of this world was only on the island of Great Britain. Of course he knew about wizards in the British government, but it was impossible for the former Ministry of Magic to have any contact with him, and now the two sides hook up more and more frequently. In the past, Voldemort would only attack individuals and families in the wizarding world, but now the Death Eaters he leads will attack large targets such as Hogwarts trains and the Ministry of Magic's awards show. In the past, Voldemort's subordinates only had a group of hardcore Death Eaters, but now he has begun to recruit a large number of low-level dark wizards to strengthen his own strength and many variations outside of Voldemort. It's not that I don't understand, but that the world is changing fast. Over the past few hundred years, the changes in the magic world are far less than those in the past few years. At this moment, Dumbledore felt tired and couldn't keep up with his thinking. So, what is the starting point of all these changes? Dumbledore thought. Zhang Su's face first appeared in Dumbledore's mind. In the past 2 years, Dumbledore fully understood what Mr. Zhao from the East meant when he said in a letter to himself that I chose a student for Hogwarts who can inject fresh vitality into Hogwarts. Although the student injected a lot of his own energy into Bugsbuttons, the changes he did at Hogwarts were tangible. Dumbledore thought he couldn't see through this student, because what he did was really out of line with his age. Back then, Dumbledore also wrote to Mr. Zhao asking if this guy was an adult who had applied some oriental secret technique to rejuvenate his youth. This question also exists among other professors. Mr. Zhao wrote back to him later, establishing written evidence to prove that this guy was indeed born in 1980, and then he chose to believe it after another round of sayings that children of the revolution mature early, and children of the poor start their own families early. The first time Dumbledore couldn't see through Zhang was when Zhang formed a large group to brush the 5-player copy of a Quirrell. When Dumbledore hid from the Mirror of Eris, he thought that what he saw would be Harry Potter and a few friends including Zhang Su coming to the level together, working together to defeat the demon possessed by Voldemort. Body Quirrell. In the end, what he saw was a group of students rolling over like a steamroller. At that time, Dumbledore, who planned to train Harry Potter into a powerful wizard, found that things were out of his control for the first time, and it was Zhang who caused all this. That night, Dumbledore, who had calmed down, discovered another possibility of Harry Potter's evolution route after some thought. So he quietly upgraded the Harry Potter Warrior Development Plan to the Harry Potter Leader Development Plan. A Harry Potter who leads everyone to fight Voldemort seems to be stronger than a Harry Potter who singled out Voldemort. For practicality. So after making some moves, Dumbledore tried to let the students go to toss in the second year. It's just that Dumbledore didn't expect to encounter the basilisk incident that year. And the final result made Dumbledore ecstatic, because he found that the combat effectiveness of the combined students was above his expectations. The second time Dumbledore couldn't see through someone Zhang was a year ago. Chapter 369 The Voice in the Fireplace. Dumbledore was used to the constant surprises or frights that Zhang Su brought him. Dumbledore was taken aback when Zhang Su put Riddle's diary in front of him, and when Zhang Su took Harry to the headmaster's office to find out that Harry was a double yolk. A year ago, after Dumbledore knew that Voldemort's Horcruxes were under his control, he looked back and suddenly discovered that when it comes to dealing with Horcruxes, someone Zhang is involved in every key node. At this time, Dumbledore found that on the most critical and difficult level to eliminate Voldemort, he seemed to have passed this level lying down, apart from leading the team to the cave by the sea and doing some investigations of. At this time, Dumbledore inevitably had some thoughts in his heart. Zhang Su was going for the Horcrux from the beginning. In fact, the idea of this idea started when Dumbledore investigated the Horcrux. But what puzzled Dumbledore was how Zhang Su knew about it. At first, Dumbledore thought it was Mr. Zhao's divination from the East, and then he told Zhang Su about it. Later Dumbledore found out that Zhang Su used to play with a time converter, and then he began to wonder what Zhang Su saw in time travel. So he found an opportunity to ask Zhang Su about the time converter in the cave where the locket was hidden, but Zhang Su denied this question from the very beginning. Therefore, Dumbledore has been puzzled by this matter. In the end, the issue could only be shelved. After thinking about Zhang Su, Dumbledore found that he was not the source of all these changes, he was just an executor, not the origin. Dumbledore followed this line back up, and suddenly found that he seemed to be the origin of all this. Because he was the one who recruited Zhang Su from the East, and the opportunity for this matter was also that he represented the Ministry of Magic to China to negotiate the extradition of the Death Eaters. Going back further, the reason why the Death Eaters were arrested to plant sugarcane was because they hunted down the Scarlet family to Hong Kong. The Death Eaters chased and killed the Scarlet family because Voldemort knew that this family was a hidden family with Slytherin blood. In order to ensure the uniqueness of his own blood, Voldemort issued the order to hunt down the Dark Lord. The reason why Voldemort knew the secret of the Scarlet family seems to be probably possible. Dumbledore opened his eyes. A pair of blue and bright eyes looked at the cabinet where he stored those too many memories. It seems that this was an accidental slip of the tongue when he was chatting with an in-principal in the faculty lounge, and at this time, Riddle just opened the door and came in to ask him a question. At this time, Dumbledore's heart, like a child who did something wrong, raised the idea of destroying the evidence. I heard from Zhang that the fish's memory is only 7 seconds. As long as these memories are introduced to the fish, they will disappear without a trace in a short time. Dumbledore said at the same time, By the fireplace in the common room of the Lion Court, there was also someone muttering something in a low voice. Because of the curfew tonight, the students were driven back to the dormitory by Professor McGonagall early. While looking for a prefect to be on duty in the common room tonight, Ron volunteered to take on the burden. Under Ron's repeated requests, Professor McGonagall could only give him this task. At this time, only Ron was sitting in front of the fireplace facing the flames in the common room. Ron felt that his head was in a mess, and the news that Professor Scarlet brought back with Ginny was not very optimistic. The only information that can be confirmed now is that Harry and Zhang Su ran away, but failed to return to Hogwarts for some reason. Now that Harry and the others are still missing, Dumbledore thinks that it is better for Harry and the others to hide outside first, because he is worried that Voldemort will come back to Hogwarts again tonight after scoring twice in a big effort, and a game against Harry Potter's assassination. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Move. Ron in front of the fireplace was thinking about Ginny lying in the ward, and worried about Harry who was missing. He really wanted to do something for them, but suddenly found that he couldn't do anything at the moment. What kind of person am I? Ron murmured to himself in a low voice. They say they're not as smart as Hermione. They said their magic wasn't strong enough for Harry. They say their herbalism is not as good as Neville's. They said they were lucky to win the Triwizard Tournament, and Zhang didn't participate. They say that they are inferior to Zhang in terms of appearance and connotation. This is indeed inferior, they also say themselves. Many students have always had some negative comments on Ron. He is not ignorant of this, but just pretends not to care. And at this moment, when Ron was in trouble, these negative rumors appeared in his mind one by one. Am I really useless? Ron asked himself in a low voice. At least I'm doing well on the Quidditch pitch. Ron found his strengths. But the Quidditch match with a mysterious man is not the final outcome. Ron found that his advantages were useless at this moment. Do you have the courage to help your friend when he's in danger? A voice Ron had never heard came from the flames of the fireplace. Of course. Ron replied subconsciously. Ron was on the alert now, because the fire in the fireplace couldn't speak, and Hogwarts was in a state of emergency, and the fireplace wasn't connected to the Flu network. Maybe some ghost is joking with me, thought Ron. Although it is logical that the ghosts in Hogwarts Castle will help patrol the castle at this moment, there are always some ghosts who like to touch fish, and there are also ghosts who like to play tricks on students occasionally. Really? The voice in the flame said a little frivolously, but I can't see it. I only see a young man sitting here who is doubting and denying himself. Ron felt that the tone of the voice was a bit familiar, and after thinking about it for a while, he realized that the tone was somewhat similar to the Sorting Hat. It was normal for ghosts to imitate other people's voices to play tricks on people or scare peeves away, so Ron had no other thoughts about it. You must have the courage of self-confidence to have the courage to work. This sentence suddenly popped up in Ron's mind, which he accidentally saw when he learned Hermione's notes before. Hermione said that this was what a treeman in Zhang Su's country said. Later, when Ron was chatting with Zhang Su, he curiously asked him whether the tree man turned into a tree when it grew to a certain age, and whether the tree would still bloom and bear fruit when it became a tree man. Well, remember now. Ron took a deep breath and said to the flame in the fireplace, people always feel that the road ahead is lost, and there are always times when they encounter troughs and setbacks. But these thorns on the road of life are not terrible, as long as believe in yourself, take courage, and you can take the magic wand in your hand and go forward. Ron made a bowl, and I don't know when the chicken soup for the soul that Zhang had fed him. After finishing this bowl of old chicken soup, Ron realized that his loss just now was irrelevant. Everyone has their own strengths. He doesn't have to exploit his weaknesses and avoid his strengths. It is what he should do when he discovers and uses his strengths. Ron just took the chicken soup for himself and adjusted his mentality for a while. Really? Then, let me show you your courage, the voice from the fireplace said suddenly to Ron. Ron thought that the ghost hiding in the firewood was going to jump out to scare him, but he didn't expect a sudden force to pull him into the fireplace. Chapter 370 Surrounded. In a forest somewhere in England, Zhang Su, Harry Potter, and Draco Malfoy were sitting by the campfire, and finished a roast chicken in their hands with a fat house happy water. Originally, the next step of the awards show was the banquet, but something happened less than 10 minutes after leaving the meal. After Zhang Su cleaned up the leftover chicken bones, he asked Harry, Harry, do your feet still hurt? A little more, but it won't affect walking, Harry replied. Harry was also unlucky today. The exploding insole door key blew his hoof to pieces. When Zhang Su treated him, he spent a lot of effort to stop the bleeding. Then Zhang Su looked at Malfoy, and it turned out that Malfoy was like a helpless girl waiting for an unknown fate in a small black room. After meeting Zhang Su's eyes, he shrank back, afraid that Zhang Su would dug a hole and buried himself. After all this time, Malfoy had figured out what tonight was going to be, and he was in an embarrassing situation himself. You don't need to think about who did what happened tonight, and he is in the same group as these people as a result. He escaped with the 2 victims by accident. And the most important thing is that he can't beat the 2 opponents. So at this moment Malfoy can only choose to be cowardly. As long as you don't summon the Death Eaters, Zhang Su said to Malfoy. Under Zhang's coercion, Malfoy hurriedly nodded in agreement, not even thinking about how Zhang knew that he could notify Voldemort. When Zhang Su was on the phone with Dobby just now, Dobby told him Dumbledore's order to let them hide outside temporarily. Zhang Su thinks this method is feasible, because now even he doesn't know where he is, let alone other people. He could only tell from the only signal on his phone that there was a residential area nearby, and the packaging of Pipers and Durex he found around just now could also be used as evidence. Originally, Zhang Su thought of finding a hotel in a nearby city to hide, but now the Death Eaters can attack Muggles without any scruples, and innocent people might be hurt. And hiding in the embassy doesn't seem very good now. If the Death Eaters follow them into the embassy one-sidedly, it will be a lot of fun. Zhang Su took an inventory of the available door keys and found that he didn't have many choices. Hiding in Book-Splittons is not enough. If Laudang loses his face so much, he will definitely wear little shoes if you try to lie down for another 2 or 3 days and run back to the country. It seems that you are timid. If you don't run, then release the cloud-piercing arrow and call for reinforcements. Under the strange gazes of Harry and Malfoy, Zhang Su threw a piece of paper into the bonfire. The flames flickered, and the paper was reduced to ashes at an incredible speed. Let's wait here until dawn first, and then think of a way, Zhang Su said to the 2 people next to him. Neither Harry nor Malfoy objected. Because of Malfoy's presence, Harry was incapable of talking all night. Malfoy, on the other hand, insisted on the principle of saying less and making less mistakes, not saying something good, and not speaking if he could not speak. So in this weird atmosphere, basically Zhang Su was talking, and then Harry and Malfoy nodded in agreement. For a while, there was an eerie silence around the campfire. In addition to the sound of some bugs in the woods, and the crackling sound of the firewood burning besides, there is no other sound here. Under the current situation, Harry and Malfoy did not fight, but sat there quietly, which was the best news for Zhang Su originally. Zhang Su had planned to bring them down first if the 2 of them fought. At this moment, Harry and Malfoy stared at the campfire in a daze, as if trying to divine something from the fire. And Zhang Su had a great time playing with a Tetris handheld. When the Red Bear disintegrated a few years ago, Zhang was the first to join forces with Jin and Zhao to snatch the copyright of Tetris. Later, the 3 guys started to build a factory to produce Tetris handhelds full of their childhood feelings. As a result, the 3 of them played around with this extremely simple handheld that can play Tetris, Snake, and racing. With its outrageously low price and fun for all ages, it quickly became popular among the general public. Third world countries caught on, and sales made Nintendo and Sega a bit of a toothache. Just when Zhang Su played a game of using a 4-grid-long bar to eliminate 4 lines at once, the insects around the forest suddenly disappeared in an instant. The moment the worms suddenly fell silent, Zhang Su immediately dropped the handheld in his hand, jumped up, and took out his wand. Harry and Malfoy, who were in a daze, didn't react for a while. After seeing Zhang Su standing up suddenly and getting ready to fight, they immediately stood up and drew out their wands to get ready. At this time, a gust of cold wind blew by, making the 3 people by the campfire shiver. Get ready for the Patronus charm, Harry. Zhang Su immediately discovered what surrounded them. What answered Zhang Su was the sound of Harry casting a curse, and the sound of Malfoy's upper and lower teeth clashing. Are you so afraid of Dementors, Malfoy? Zhang Su asked Malfoy curiously. You don't know the horror of Dementors now. Malfoy said nervously, in recent years, all the prisoners in Azkaban have been tortured by Dementors like never before. Almost all of those prisoners have become living skeletons, and once they leave Azkaban for a period of time, they will be tortured like never before. Harry was obviously taken aback by Malfoy's words, and the culprit of the matter just said oh and then didn't respond. Qual God Guardian Uiao soon, 3 bear-shaped patron saints also appeared, and together with Harry's stag, they protected Zhang Su and the three of them in 4 directions. There are so many Dementors. Harry said nervously, could it be that all the Dementors in Britain are gathered here? The chatter of teeth was beginning to join Harry's voice now. Now in the surrounding woods, you can see dense figures of Dementors floating in the air. There are so many Dementors in the woods that the woods began to be filled with fog. I think even if it hasn't finished, it should be halfway through. Zhang Su replied. At this moment, there was a sound of a heavy object falling to the ground. Malfoy's feet were weak and he sat down on the ground. What should we do? Malfoy, who was sitting on the ground, cried in a crying voice. Just as Zhang Su was about to answer, the phone in his pocket rang. Chapter 371. Zhang Su watched the Dementors surrounding him vigilantly, took out his phone and pressed the call button. There was good news and bad news on the phone. The good news is that reinforcements have arrived nearby, but the bad news is that there are too many Dementors around, and it is difficult to attack in a short time. Then how long do I have to hold on? Zhang Su asked. The other end of the phone said, if you just rush in and rescue you, it will take less than 5 minutes. If we want to wipe out all these guys, we need 15 minutes to prepare. At that time, we need your cooperation to cooperate with the inside and outside, and the center will bloom. Flanking Zhang Su listened to the arrangement of the reinforcements, and the cold sweat on his forehead kept breaking out. Zhang Su wiped the cold sweat off his brow and said, Chief, you are trying to take this place as Meng Liangu and me as Zhang Lingfu. Don't worry, we are not Li Xiangsha. Said the other end of the phone. Okay, then I'll stick to it and wait for help. Anyway, there is no Gundam in Dementors, so Zhang Su turned off his phone after he finished speaking. Since the Dementors left Azkaban to follow Voldemort, they, like giants and werewolves, have been used by Voldemort as tools to create terror. Voldemort treated them like huskies, threw them outside and left them alone anyway. All Voldemort needed was the horror they created, and he ignored the rest. In Voldemort's eyes, even half-blood wizards can't stand on the stage, and those werewolves who are not even Dementors, giants, and half-human half-monsters are just tools like pots and pans in his eyes. In recent times, the ever-expanding population of Dementors has caused great trouble to wizards and muggles alike, who have made the British Isles their hunting ground. But Mr. Zhang seized this huge business opportunity. Back then, he discovered that gods can resist Dementors, so this time he joined forces with Weasley's Magic and Trick Shop to sell the latest European medieval-style gods. Earned a large amount of gold coins for a while. At the same time, eradicating the Dementors on the British island has become an important task of the Ministry of Magic, and even offered a lot of rewards. Zhang Su saw that the fog in the woods was getting thicker, and he could see that there were more and more Dementors inside. He wondered why the Dementors would find them, and there was a tendency to gather more and more. He wanted to talk to the leader of the Dementors, who had eaten the takeaway he delivered, but it never showed up. Harry's face was growing paler by this time, and now he was relying on his own willpower to hold on, and Malfoy had already fallen to the ground, and could only tremble on the ground. There are too many Dementors around, and some magic like mechanized mind doesn't help much. Zhang Su glanced at Harry, and then asked him, Harry, can you buy me a minute later? I won't be able to maintain the Patronus charm by then. Harry looked around and said, I'll do my best. Zhang Su couldn't put too high demands on him. If his patron saint ran around everyone, it was not impossible to persist for a minute. Then Zhang Su said to Malfoy, can you stand up? If you can't, we might leave you later. When Malfoy on the ground heard this, he immediately got up from the ground and stood up, for fear that Zhang Su and Harry would really throw him down. Just when Zhang Su and the others were about to act, the tall Dementor suddenly came out of the woods and walked towards Zhang Su and the others. After it approached, Zhang Su found that this guy was the leader of the Dementors, who ate a lot of his takeaways back then. It's just that I haven't seen it for a while, and its figure has grown a lot. It seems that those takeaways are quite nourishing. Just when Zhang Su was about to say hello to the leader of the Dementors, who floated over, Harry's patron saint, the stag, suddenly rushed towards the Dementors. Zhang Su glanced at the flustered Harry next to him, and could only sigh inwardly. It was too stressful for Harry tonight, and it was good that he wasn't crushed like Malfoy. So just now, under the pressure, he didn't notice Zhang Su's hint that he should not attack first, and took the lead in pushing the Dementor leader far away. Now that the matter has come to this point, there is nothing to talk about, and we can only continue to work. Back then, Zhang Su used to clean up the Dementors once on the Quidditch pitch. At that time, except for Harry who turned into a kite and was blown away by the wind, all the teachers and students in the school saw the golden storm released by Zhang Su like an electric mosquito swatter. Killed quite a few Dementors. Although Zhang Su lay down for a long time afterwards, few people knew about it, so he gave Malfoy a lot of confidence. Malfoy, who was not as strong as Zhang Su and Harry, was already on the verge of collapse. If Zhang Su hadn't accumulated power for a long time, the pony would have called for reinforcements. Malfoy, who was standing there thinking about something, suddenly felt that someone was patting him on the shoulder, and after a jolt all over, he saw that it was Zhang Su patting him. Then Zhang Su smiled and said to Malfoy, "Don't worry, your first kiss will not be given to a Dementor." For a while, Malfoy didn't know how to answer Zhang Su's words, so he could only turn his head to ignore Zhang Su with a blushing face. As for the Harry who had already laughed out loud, Malfoy said to put this on the books first. Zhang Su looked at the Dementors that started to float towards him, then turned his head to Harry and Malfoy and said, "Okay, you two hold on for a minute, and then you are ready to finish." The Dementors started to move, and Zhang Su also started working ahead of schedule. The corners of Harry and Malfoy's mouths twitched a little when they saw Zhang Su take out a man-tall, beautifully decorated wand. At this moment, all of Zhang Su's patron saints disappeared, and the speed of the Dementors drifting over was a little faster. Harry hastily released his Patronus again, and let it run in circles around him to drive away the approaching Dementors. Dementors are not as friendly as people sucking cats. They suck enough people and they will be crippled. So Malfoy could only cram and learn the Patronus charm from Harry on the spot, but it turned out to be of no use if the Patronus charm was so easy to learn. Dementors wouldn't be used as prison guards by the Ministry of Magic. At this time, Zhang Su, who was concentrating on preparing spells, didn't create a golden storm to drive away the Dementors like he did on the Quidditch pitch. Today, he only needs to prevent the Dementors from breaking through his defensive circle. Harry directed his Patronus to keep driving away the Dementors that were getting closer, while paying attention to Zhang Su's spellcasting. He saw the tip of Zhang Su's oversized wand begin to gather golden light, and at the same time he heard Zhang Su chanting a spell in Chinese. Li Wei has long been exhausted by heavy responsibilities, and no matter how exhausted he is, he will never be able to support himself. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 372. The Peak District National Park, established in 1951 between the cities of Sheffield and Manchester in central England, is the first and largest national park in the UK. Within the scope of the national park, in addition to more than, % of the population engaged in tourism, there are more than, % of the population engaged in quarrying. Near the quarry, there are small towns built on the basis of the quarry. Quarry workers like to come to the town's pubs on weekend nights, chatting and bragging with friends over drinks. In a fan bar, the main content of the chat among the guests was the Premier League that just ended today, and the rising star named David Beckham, who performed well on the pitch for the first time in the Premier League. Just when the drinkers were happily talking about Beckham, who made his debut on behalf of the England national team not long ago, they suddenly felt a cold wind blowing through the bar, and then the whole bar seemed to be pressed the mute switch, in an instant fell into silence. The sunny and energetic Beckham is gone, replaced in the minds of the drinkers, who has been annoying recently, always feel that life is a bit extreme, and always feel that money is getting harder and harder to earn every day. Not long after, the conversation among the drinkers started again, but what they were talking about was no longer about football and Beckham, but about the daughter who was too fat, the son who refused to eat, the car was too bad and the bank had no savings, and the wife hated going home by herself every day. "It's too late, my girlfriend's mother thinks she looks shabby, the child says that 6 plus 6 equals 13, and my hair is only half of what it used to be. Cyrillic lettered L. Oh, drinking snow water in cold weather, bit by bit in my heart. Everyone's life has never been easy." Drinkers come to the bar to drink on weekends, just to use alcohol to make themselves forget the bumps in life. However, at this time, everyone was using wine to drown their sorrows, and the frowning drinkers poured beer for themselves. British Prime Minister Jim Harker, who is far away in London, rarely sat on the sofa in his living room, chatting with his family about some interesting things. The current situation is difficult. Your Excellency, the Prime Minister, is frowning all day long, and there is no day for peace. Chatting with his family on weekends has been his greatest joy recently. Suddenly, Jim Harker sneezed 8 or 9 times in a row, which made his head a little dizzy. Jim Harker reached out to stop the wife, who was about to call the doctor, and said calmly, "It's okay, dear. I'm not sick, it's just someone talking bad about me, and I'm used to it." At the same time, the grievance meeting in the bar had been going on for some time, and the drinkers became more and more excited under the stimulation of stories and alcohol, and began to curse no. Downing Street and Jim who worked there Graham. Not long after, the hearts of the drinkers in the bar trembled twice, their moods turned like a coin, and they suddenly became happy. The hardships of life disappeared, and the happiest scene in their lives appeared in their minds. One drinker even raised his glass and sang, "The Lady of Joy is holy and beautiful. She shines brightly on the earth." The drinkers don't know why their mood has been on a roller coaster tonight, they just know that now they want to vent their anger and forget the depression just now. If they had opened the doors and windows of the bar at this moment, they would have seen a cloud rising from the woods a mile away. Dazzling golden light. In the center of the golden light, Zhang Su, who hung a few mana-charging treasures, concentrated on controlling the operation of mana. Unlike those fire-and-forget spells, to maintain a protective shield whose power exceeds its own control ability, the caster needs to effectively control the spell at all times. For Zhang Su, who is now in his actual age, it is not difficult to control a protective shield composed of positive energy that can resist the Dementors. But when this protective cover still needs to take on the task of central flowering later, he has to concentrate on controlling it. In this hemispherical shield with a diameter of 5 meters, Malfoy's eyes were squinted by the strong golden light. And the pair of Grandfather Gandalf glasses on Harry Potter's face entered the sunglasses mode early in the morning. Who knows when this pair of glasses was upgraded by Dumbledore again. As for Zhang Su, he had put on a pair of stylish goggles early in the morning, and the light had no effect on him. Compared with a few people in the protective cover who just felt dazzling, the Dementors outside at this time had symptoms such as heart palpitations, nausea, cold sweat, dizziness, and fatigue. The Dementors who were the first to pounce on Zhang Su and the others had advanced to less than 2 meters away from the three prey when Harry's Patronus finally disappeared. Enmity. As a result, in the next second, a golden light shot out from the three prey that made the Dementors feel disgusted and scared in their hearts, slowing down their steps. This was Zhang Su's brainstorm just now, and regardless of the party's objections, the Zhonghui New Year painting that was glued to Harry and Malfoy's robes with double-sided tape played a role. Facing the hordes of Dementors, the energy on the New Year painting was exhausted at once, and the golden light was quickly extinguished. Before Harry and the others had time to exclaim, Zhang Su's spell was ready to complete. First, the Dementors closest to Zhang Su and the others were blocked by the golden protective shield, and then the Dementors who felt unwell began to run into the woods. Thanks to the fact that Dementors have different bodies from other animals, a serious stampede would have wiped out many of them. At this moment, the negative influence brought by the Dementor finally disappeared from the three of them, which made them all heave a sigh of relief. Harry and Malfoy looked nervously at Zhang Su, who was already sweating on his forehead, and it was up to him whether he could drive the Dementors away. Suddenly, the mutation happened again. Degree Cyrillic lettered L. Harry and Malfoy were surprised to see a ring of more intense golden light glow 400 or 500 feet away from them. Soon, those golden lights formed a round wall, enclosing all the Dementors in the forest. Immediately afterwards, this golden wall of light began to spread upwards, and soon closed on the heads of the three of them. Harry and Malfoy also noticed that the wall of light outside was shrinking slowly and firmly, and many Dementors collided with the wall of light, and suddenly exploded into a cloud of black mist. At this moment, Zhang Su suddenly said, "Both of you close your eyes, otherwise I will not be responsible if your eyes are blinded later." Chapter 373 The Dementors are finished. E1X, 8 grams H8 If you don't listen to the old man's words, you will suffer in front of your eyes in Hogwarts. Sometimes if you don't keep talking about someone, you will suffer later. Of course, there are quite a few people who are not afraid of death, such as Harry who wears glasses that have entered the state of sunglasses and wants to see what will happen next. What happened next left Harry dumbfounded, and the Dementors in the light wall flew around like flies. After they had no hope of breaking through the light wall outside, they turned their heads and started to hit Zhang Su and the others inside. Within 1 minute, The shield controlled by Zhang Su shrank to less than 2 meters in diameter. The Dementor that crashed into the shield failed to break through the defense, but instead came face to face with Harry. Facing the distorted face of the Dementor almost at zero distance, Harry screamed in fright. Pony, who closed his eyes obediently, opened his eyes curiously after hearing Harry's cry, and then he saw a Dementor snap in front of him. This time it was Xiaoma's turn to be so frightened that he sat down on the ground again. Now Zhang Su has no energy to pay attention to the two of them. As long as the two of them don't rush out to give away their heads, it will be fine. The space for the Dementors to move was getting smaller and smaller. They struggled like fish in a fishing net, trying to knock the surrounding nets out of a hole where they could escape. It's just that they have no chance. The encirclement is getting tighter and tighter, and the last moment is coming. Then, with a flash of golden light, Harry and Malfoy's eyes went dark, and they were temporarily blinded by the strong light. Then the two of them heard the endless crack sound from all around, which was the sound of Dementors exploding in the air. At this time, the protective shield controlled by Zhang Su changed its passive defense. After accumulating enough power, the energy contained in it suddenly exploded, rushing to the surroundings like a tsunami. The same goes for the golden wall of light outside, rushing towards the Dementor in the middle like a tide. There is almost no room for action, and the Dementors who are being attacked from both sides can only be annihilated in the positive energy that is opposite to their own energy. Residents of nearby towns and tourists camping around couldn't be fooled by this spectacular scene. The huge waves made of golden light that were higher than the trees swept around, and then became thinner and thinner until they completely disappeared into the air. Naturally, such a situation cannot be concealed from the relevant British departments. Bear Grylls and the others conducted a careful survey after arriving at the scene, and they were relieved by the final results. The town and surrounding campgrounds were attacked tonight by a horde of Dementors, with residents and visitors suddenly plunged into painful memories. Then these Dementors were attracted by something, and the Dementors in the entire forest park gathered in the woods not far away. In the end, these Dementors were wiped out like a natural enemy. Part of the golden energy that wiped out the Dementors swept the town, and the residents of the town were infected by the positive, optimistic, and uplifting emotions in the golden energy, and the whole town became Victorian for a while. The parties had already withdrawn before the government officials arrived, and they also left a little mark to let the other party know who they were. Harry and Malfoy, who were temporarily blind, knew that the reinforcements just now were wizards from their country called by Zhang Su, and now they also knew that they were under the protection of each other. It was just the smell of seawater when he was breathing, and the sound of the waves around him, which made Harry not sure where he was now for a moment. Harry was about to find out where he was when he heard Malfoy asking, "Where are we now?" There was no answer for a while, when Harry replied, "I think we are at sea. Is there anyone here?" At this moment, footsteps sounded beside them, and then Zhang Su's voice came from the direction of the footsteps. "We are at the mouth of the Thames River, on one of the forts planned to be built by the Mernsel Ocean Fortress. It's safe here. I just got in touch with Professor Dumbledore. We will return to Hogwarts early tomorrow morning. After Madame Pomfrey treats you, you can catch up with breakfast. Now the sofa you are sitting on can let you sleep for a while. You go to sleep first, and call me if you need anything." "That's good." Harry breathed a sigh of relief. As a result of his own death, he can no longer see with his eyes, which makes him extremely insecure. He didn't care about his plans or fortresses, as long as he knew that he would be back at Hogwarts soon. The stone in his heart would fall. Malfoy had the same idea. As long as he could return to Hogwarts, everything would be fine. Then Zhang Su tossed around in a closet, found 2 slightly damp blankets and 2 pillows, and threw them to the two of them after cleaning them up. After Zhang Su gave them a few more precautions, he left. Harry and Malfoy groped and lay down on the sofa alone. Perhaps what happened tonight consumed too much of their energy, causing them to fall asleep not long after lying down. During World War II, Britain built many sea fortresses at the estuaries of the Thames and Moses rivers to resist German invasion later. These forts were abandoned and used by some people for other purposes. During this operation, they secretly occupied one and used it as a safe house. Not far from the room where Harry and the others rested is the restaurant of the original sea fortress. In the restaurant, Zhang Su was chatting with several bigwigs who had Little Red Riding Hood printed with Sunset Red tour group on the table in front of them. "So, the purpose of cleaning up the Dementors today is to make a good sale for the British side?" Zhang Su asked in surprise. "After all, we just burned a house on someone else's land not long ago, so we have to do something good for the owner's family. The person sitting opposite Zhang Su said. Zhang Su has no other thoughts about such an answer. He is now a member of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and State Security, and the other party is a member of the military. Our systems are different, and we can cooperate when necessary, but their established actions are national security. It was planned and arranged, and I couldn't say anything about it, and Zhang Su also knew that trouble started with talking too much, so he restrained his thirst for knowledge and changed the topic. Uncle Liu, does my classmate who doesn't wear glasses look familiar to you? Zhang Su asked a middle-aged man sitting diagonally across from him. Zhang Su had just informed them about the terrorist attack at the Ministry of Magic Awards Gala tonight, and the other business matters have been discussed, and the next thing is to chat to pass the time. The middle-aged man surnamed Liu thought for a while, and then said, when you say that, it really looks familiar. Back in Hong Kong, his father was beaten on the ground by you and my father. Zhang Su said. Oh, I remembered it when you said that. That Uncle Liu suddenly realized, no wonder he looks familiar to him. Does he know that his house was burned down by us? I don't know. Zhang Su shrugged and said, what if he knows? Anyway, the burning of the house was suggested by those idiots. He wanted revenge and told him to go to number 11 Lubyanka Square. Uncle Liu said indifferently. By the way, Uncle Liu suddenly remembered something, and asked Zhang Su, the big girl we rescued in Hong Kong back then, I heard that she is also a teacher in your school now. Chapter 374. When the sun was about to rise from the sea, Zhang Su, who hadn't slept well all night, yawned and began to help everyone prepare today's breakfast. Everyone helped so much last night, he had to express something in private. Before going to bed last night, Zhang Su made 2 cages to try his luck under the seabed. In the morning, a lot of shrimps were harvested in the cages. After collecting some oysters attached to the pillars supporting the sea fortress, Zhang Su returned to the kitchen with a big bag of seafood. An hour later, a large pot of fragrant shrimp, oyster and seafood porridge is ready. In the refrigerator in the kitchen, there are fish that other people usually catch from the sea. Zhang Su takes them out, cuts them up, and fry them in the frying pan until they are delicious. Yo, it smells so good, hurry up and bring me a bowl. Just as Zhang Su moved the porridge to the table in the nearby restaurant, the person on duty last night just returned to the restaurant to rest. Everyone sit down first, Zhang Su, who was preparing pickles, said to them, it will be ready soon. A pile of freshly washed bowls floated to the side of the cauldron containing seafood porridge, and then the spoons in the pan filled the bowls automatically, and then the bowls of porridge flew to the people sitting at the table by themselves. Next, whenever someone walks into the restaurant and sits at the dining table, a bowl of hot, fragrant seafood porridge will land in front of them. This is a small life magic that Zhang Su learned from Mrs. Weasley before, and he was only able to use it proficiently until recently. More than half an hour later, amidst the praise of everyone for the breakfast, a large pot of seafood porridge and other side dishes were all eaten. As for Harry and Malfoy, the 2 children whose eyesight hadn't fully recovered, the 2 of them stuffed the porridge from the spoon into their nostrils several times, and they carefully ate half a bowl of porridge when everyone else was full. Seeing the 2 of them eating so hard, Zhang Su was exhausted for them. Harry, Malfoy, if it's inconvenient to use a spoon, you can just drink from the bowl. Zhang Su said to the 2 of them, we'll be back to Hogwarts in about 15 minutes. 10 minutes later, Zhang Su and the 3 of them met Dumbledore, who came to pick them up to Hogwarts on the shore. Dumbledore brought the 3 of them back to Hogwarts without saying a word. After returning to the castle, Old Deng took Harry and the others to find Madame Pomfrey, while Zhang Su took advantage of the late breakfast. Show your face over there in the canteen. With such a big event last night, if he didn't show his face now, at lunch he would definitely hear a group of people arguing about which way to open his grave. Many students already knew what happened at the Ministry of Magic last night from the letters sent overnight from their families. At the moment, the most discussed among the students is the 3 Zhang Su who disappeared after the accident last night. When Zhang Su walked into the cafeteria, he immediately attracted the attention of the students. After sitting at the table where he was used to, Zhang Su took a few chicken sandwiches and a glass of milk from the table. He couldn't grab the big pot of seafood porridge from other people at the table just now. During the time he drank 1 bowl of porridge, the others poured down 2 or 3 bowls in a row. Zhang Chu, who was sitting next to Zhang Su, first asked, where did you go last night? I ran outside and hid. Zhang Su replied while eating a sandwich, last night I asked someone to help me, and I had all night with their help." Then Zhang Su asked, "Is there anything wrong at school last night?" "Look at Gryffindor," Zhang Su replied. Zhang Su looked up at the dining table in the Lion Court, and after looking through it, he didn't find anything amiss. After scanning it 2 or 3 times, he found a serious violation. "How did Ron become bald?" Zhang Su asked in surprise. "I heard that it was burned by the fire in the fireplace." Zhang Su replied with a suppressed smile, "I heard that he sat in front of the fireplace during the vigil in the common room last night, then dozed off and fell headlong into the fireplace. As a result, his hair was burned off." After Zhang Su finished speaking, he couldn't help laughing out loud, and the students next to him also laughed. It could be seen that Ron's bald head had been their joke this morning. At this moment, Zhang Su suddenly said, lying on the grass, and then used magic to protect the breakfast in front of him. Immediately afterwards, a shower of owls fell from the sky. Harry and Malfoy followed the owls into the cafeteria. Madame Pomfrey had eye drops for treating blindness caused by strong light, and the eyes would be cured after dripping into the eyes, but the tears would keep flowing out during this period. It was only when Harry walked up to Hermione, who was reading the just-arrived Daily Prophet, and sat down, and brought him a little breakfast, that Hermione, who was concentrating on reading the newspaper, suggested a suggestion. "You're back, Harry," Hermione called out in surprise. "Yes," Harry nodded as he ate his breakfast. As the saying goes, a half-grown man eats a poor man, and now Harry at this age is able to eat, and a half-bowl of porridge early in the morning can only pad his stomach. After eating a piece of cake, Harry said, "It's been a while since I've been back. I just went to Madame Pomfrey's for treatment. I saw Ginny in the school infirmary. She will be back in a while. By the way, what about Ron?" Harry noticed that the Indian girl was sitting on the other side of Hermione, so he was a little surprised where Ron was. "I'm glad you came back safely," said the other half of Harry. Hearing the sound of his good buddy's voice in his other half, Harry turned his head while taking breakfast from the table and said, "You must not have imagined what happened to me last night, buddy." When Harry turned his head away, he saw a boiled egg. Harry was shocked, and it took him a while to realize, "What's wrong with your hair?" Ron made a long mouthful of words, and finally sighed deeply. He volunteered to keep vigil in the common room last night, and fell into the fireplace while dozing off. Neville, who was sitting across from Ron, explained to Harry. Ron grinned and said nothing, just lowered his head and concentrated on dealing with the potatoes on the plate in front of him. "Don't worry," Harry comforted him. "Hair will grow back after a night of sleep. If it doesn't work, you can go to Madame Pomfrey." After Harry finished speaking, he took a glass of milk from the middle of the table and handed it to Ron. When he was about to say something, he found that Ron had a terrified expression on his face after seeing the milk in the glass. "No, thanks, I don't need it." Ron quickly pushed the cup to Harry's face. This time it was Harry's turn to be confused. At this moment Hermione whispered to Harry, "He's been weird this morning, whether it's milk or beef pie, he's scared." "What irritated him?" Harry asked Hermione in a low voice. "Who knows," said Hermione, "maybe the fire burned my brains out." "Where did you go last night, Harry?" Neville, who was sitting across from him, asked, "What happened to you last night?" After hearing Neville's question, the surrounding students, including Ron and Hermione, all turned their attention to Harry. There was no report about them running away in today's newspaper. So Harry started the storytelling mode, and he said in a low voice, "You must have never seen a Dementor flying in the sky densely like flies." Chapter 375. In the cafeteria, Harry was telling stories to his classmates. Malfoy lowered his head and concentrated on eating without speaking. Zhang Su swallowed his breakfast in twos and went back to the dormitory with a copy of the Daily Prophet. After skimming through last night's newspaper on the sofa in the living room, Zhang Su threw the newspaper on the coffee table, then went into the bedroom to catch up on sleep. Today's Daily Prophet devoted half of its pages to last night's attack except for one page that reported the awards ceremony. The rest of the pages covered the situation of the explosion and the subsequent rescue situation in an all-round way. In the auditorium of the Ministry of Magic at that time, after the podium exploded and Zhang Su was blown away, many decorations, tableware and even candles in the auditorium turned into bombs, and the power was not small. The wizards in the auditorium were caught off guard, and there were heavy casualties on the scene. At that time, Dumbledore didn't notice the abnormality of the explosives, so he suffered a loss at the beginning, but he also protected some people around him, and stopped the explosion of the last fifth of the suspicious objects. Among the unfortunate victims who died on the spot, there was a young man who had had a little contact with Zhang Su. After Zhang Su and the others entered the auditorium, a young man not much older than Zhang Su walked up to Zhang Su and his party and stopped them. Then the young boy chattered a lot to Zhang Su, and his attitude when he spoke was extremely arrogant, which caused Malfoy behind Zhang Su to feel uncomfortable. It's just that with Liaodang by his side today, it's not easy for Xiaoma to play his young master's temper. Moreover, Zhang Su and none of them can understand the Indian English he speaks, including Liaodang who has lived for more than 100 years and can chat with murlocs on the shore. This also makes Xiaoma don't know where to start if he wants to step on someone. After several people looked at each other in blank dismay, Zhang Su could only say to the other party in standard Oxford accent English, "I'm sorry, can you speak English, please? We don't understand Hindi." As a result, the young boy was so angry that his face was as red as the turban on his head. Then he was pulled away by another middle-aged Indian wizard who was also wearing a red turban, and the middle-aged wizard kept apologizing to Dumbledore. Just judging from Liaodang's expression, he didn't understand what the other party was saying. In today's newspaper, when the young boy picked up his teacup to drink tea, the teacup exploded and he died on the spot. When Zhang Su saw this, he could only sigh deeply, lamenting the impermanence of fate. The other unfortunate victims included both distinguished guests invited by the Ministry of Magic in attendance at the party. In a report in the newspaper, it was reported that all the Aurors present were not seriously injured, at most only slightly injured, and all this benefited from a series of black magic purchased by the Auror office from Weasley's Magic Wheezes credit for defense items. It can be predicted that after this soft article is published, the business of Weasley's Wizard Wheezes will be more prosperous. As far as the Ministry of Magic is concerned, the best news in today's newspapers is that Rita Skeeter was injured and unconscious on the spot, and is now lying in St. Mungo's. Otherwise Scrimgeour would have lost 50% more hair today. Period. In addition to the explosion in the Ministry of Magic Hall, last night's news also mentioned the golden light emerging from the Peak District National Park. However, the report only mentions the golden light phenomenon, and the cause and effect are still under investigation. Just because there was not much valuable news in the newspaper, Zhang Su went to catch up on sleep after browsing. Harry, who had been instructed before, half-truthfully explained to his classmates what happened after they escaped that night. After the experience, the other students stopped asking Zhang Su about what happened that night. Then Hogwarts returned to the way it used to be. Those who were preparing for the college entrance examination were busy brushing up questions every day. Those who practiced magic hard every night spent their youthful sweat in the room of requirement, and those who were preparing for conspiracy waited for an opportunity in the dark. Outside of Hogwarts, the latest news is that the wizards have discovered that the number of Dementors has suddenly decreased significantly. Rita Skeeter, who was treated in Saint the Tale of Wizards queuing in front of the Whisk to buy defense against the dark arts items in front of the Weasley broom store, and the Malfoys who went on a trip to America for their teenage anniversary after returning home to see their house burnt down, scolding the Ministry of Magic for failing to keep wizards safe in the Daily Prophet. There are so many news stories recently, Zhang Su didn't know where to start. However, seeing a bunch of native products from America that Lao Ma sent to Xiaoma later, it seems that the couple really traveled to America. But Zhang Su didn't do anything about these things except complain. His main task now is to prepare for the college entrance examination in the name of recovering from his injuries. Anyway, Dumbledore and the Ministry of Magic are responsible for the sky falling. But Zhang Su didn't look for trouble, but things did find Zhang Su. For so many years at Hogwarts, Zhang Su only met Professor Sprout in the greenhouse and the staff lounge. It was the first time for Zhang Su to be called into her office by Professor Sprout in so many years. The style of Professor Sprout's office is a bit similar to Zhang Su's previous Muggle Studies professor's office. There are many places in the office where there are flower pots with various plants. However, the types of plants in their offices are quite different. The plants planted in Zhang Su's office are on par with retired veteran cotters, mainly ornamental and recreational plants. Walking into the office, those plants can make people feel refreshed. Professor Sprout is different. The plants planted in her office are all moved into the office for her convenience for observation and research at any time. After walking into her office, the smell of flower fertilizer exuded from the flower pots will definitely not make most people feel comfortable. After all, one of them is yearning for the life of retired veteran cotters, while the other is doing research more conveniently. Today, Professor Sprout spread a large drawing on the floor of her office, with a few quills floating on it, writing and drawing on the drawing from time to time. Zhang Su walked over and found that the blueprint on the ground was actually the floor plan of Hogwarts. "Is your body okay recently?" Professor Sprout asked. "It's better than before, thank you for your concern, Professor." Zhang Su replied. "That's good." Professor Sprout said to Zhang Su, "Although I don't really want to disturb you, there is something that I think needs your attention. And you were the one who started this matter." Hearing what Professor Sprout said, Zhang Su began to break out in a cold sweat. Over the years, when Professor Sprout talked about the things led by Zhang Su, it was basically not a good thing. After all, under the leadership of Zhang Su, places such as greenhouses and medicine fields were severely damaged almost every time he was looking for Zhang Su to settle accounts. Professor Sprout would talk to him like this. So this time Zhang Su thought that Professor Sprout was going to settle the score by himself first, so he couldn't help becoming nervous, and began to carefully recall whether he had come up with any new tricks recently. After seeing Zhang Su's expression, Professor Sprout naturally guessed what he was thinking, so he stopped for a while and let Zhang Su scare himself for a while. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.